Linimo, I don't care what you think. You have to move out of this log cabin today. This is non-negotiable. A wilderness farm. Inside the spacious yet shabby main hall of the log cabin, a cold, sharp female voice brutally shattered the stillness of early morning. The girl speaking wore black and white color block sportswear, with a crop top that showed a sliver of fair skin. Strikingly pretty and well-proportioned, she was Su Qingya, the class beauty admired by everyone. Arms folded across her chest and chin tilted upward, she stared down at Lin Mo with undisguised disgust in her eyes. Lin Mo squatted on the ground, whittling a wooden spear. At those words, his hands came to a halt. He lifted his head and met Su Qingya's self-righteous gaze, then glanced at more than 30 girls standing scattered behind her. They were all good-looking, with varied figures. Back in civilized society, such a group would have drawn plenty of attention. Right now, however, Lin Mo could only find the scene bitterly ridiculous. 3 days earlier, the girls in their class had insisted on an upscale team building activity and forced everyone on an outdoor camping trip. The other boys in the class had seen through their attitudes and made excuses to stay away, refusing to be taken advantage of. As the class life committee member, Lin Mo could not get out of it and had been dragged along, forced to work as an unpaid helper carrying luggage and buying supplies. Then their coach drove into strange thick fog on a mountain highway, and everyone blacked out. When they woke up, 36 female classmates, their female homeroom teacher, and Lin Mo, 38 people in total, found themselves mysteriously transported to this abandoned farm surrounded by primeval forest. Before they could figure out what had happened, an emotionless mechanical voice echoed inside every person's head. Ding! Welcome to the Wilderness Trial Ground. Selected participants who survive 30 days in this no-man's land will qualify for Supernatural Talent Awakening. Failure means death. Survive successfully, and you may advance to the next phase or return to your original world. Once they learned the truth, the girls broke down at once, their wails nearly shaking the roof. On the first day, paralyzed by fear, they huddled inside the house and dared not step outside. Risking unknown dangers, Lin Mo went alone to map out the land around the farm. He braved cold winds to patch up the cabin's drafty gaps, creating a shelter that kept out wind and rain. On the second day, Lin Mo took a few braver girls with him. They dug out a half-abandoned old well in the backyard and gathered wild fruits and edible greens nearby, securing drinking water and basic food for the whole group. Now it was the third day. Su Qingya and the others noticed there were almost no wild beasts close to the farm. Once panic faded, their self-centered attitudes resurfaced. They even convinced themselves this was nothing more than a slightly uncomfortable luxury farm getaway. Then they saw a major problem. Lin Mo, a group made up almost entirely of girls, should not have a boy among them. Worse still, over these 3 days Lin Mo had made practical arrangements to stay alive and had quietly become the group's backbone. That filled Su Qingya and her allies with a strong sense that they would lose control of their own situation. After secret discussions among themselves, Su Qingya stepped forward to confront him. Su Qingya, what exactly are you trying to say? Lin Mo set down his carving knife, sat firmly on a wooden stool, and looked coldly at the crowd. Huh? What do I mean? Su Qingya let out a sneer. She flicked her carefully manicured nails, then pointed sharply at Lin Mo, her tone aggressive. Lin Mo, we are all adults, so stop pretending not to understand. 37 of us girls are stuck on this desolate farm, and you are the only boy. There are no laws or rules here. Boys can act recklessly. What if you turn hostile and harm us one night? Over these past few days you have been ordering us around. Who can say you are not trying to gain power over all of us? To stir up the crowd, Su Qingya turned toward the girls behind her and spoke loudly. Girls, trapped in this strange place, if we stick together as women, we can definitely survive 30 days and unlock special abilities. Putting one boy with a large group of girls is far too risky. We might not even last 10 days. I say we expel Lin Mo from the farm. Otherwise, we will all live in constant fear. Murmurs filled the hall the moment she finished speaking. Though many girls were not as extreme as Su Qingya, her words planted suspicion in their minds, and they watched Lin Mo with clear wariness. Su Qingya is right. Lin Mo has done some work these past 2 days, but with only men and women here, who knows what he really wants? Exactly. I have slept very lightly these nights, terrified something bad might happen. It is so inconvenient. We have to hide just to change clothes, worried he might be watching. Listening to these ungrateful remarks, Lin Mo laughed out of anger. Over 3 days he had done all the hardest physical labor. Each night, he volunteered to sleep behind the main hall door where the wind blew through, getting up many times to keep watch. Instead of thanks, these ungrateful people suspected the worst of him and decided to get rid of him once he was no longer useful. Su Qingya, you have gone too far. Amid the chorus of agreement, a petite girl with a pure-looking face pushed her way forward. It was Xia Yuqing, the class academic representative, one of the few girls who had willingly helped Lin Mo with work. Chest heaving with anger, Xia Yuqing stared hard at Su Qingya and argued, Lin Mo has done all the heavy work these days. Without him, we would have no clean drinking water at all. You happily eat the food and drink the water he finds. Yet because of your own irrational fears you slander him and want to drive him away? On what grounds? Xia Yuqing, have you developed a crush on this guy? Su Qingya's expression darkened, and she rebuked her sharply. He gathered firewood and picked wild fruit. Yes, but we supported him. Would he have dared go outside alone without us? Besides, we are not imagining his intentions. You may like him, but the rest of us refuse to take that risk. He is only being nice to get what he wants. That is not true. Eyes glistening, Xia Yuqing tried to argue back, but was pulled into the crowd by two other girls. As tensions threatened to spiral out of control, the elegant woman who had been sitting silently in the main seat finally stood up. It was Lu Yunyan, their homeroom teacher for the team building trip. She wore a fitted business suit and pencil skirt. She walked to the center of the room, pushed her gold-rimmed glasses higher on her nose, and struck a pose of impartial mediation. Lin Mo, Su Qingya, and the others have understandable worries. Men and women should keep appropriate boundaries. You are a young man full of energy, and girls are in a more vulnerable position. Taking precautions makes sense. For the sake of group harmony, and to ease everyone's fears, I would like to suggest a compromise. A compromise? Lin Mo looked coldly at the teacher who normally maintained a poised, dignified image. Lu Yunyan pointed toward a run-down, drafty storage shed 20 meters away from the main log cabin. From tonight onward you will sleep in that shed. Stay out of the main building. This avoids uncomfortable situations, and you can also keep watch on the outer perimeter to guard against wild animals. During the daytime, you will still fetch water and search for food for the farm. After we finish eating, we will set aside your portion. What do you think of this arrangement? Silence fell over the hall. Smug, cold smiles tugged at the corners of Su Qingya's and several other girls' mouths. Keeping Lin Mo outside to work during the day and stand guard at night still carried minor risks, yet it felt acceptable to them. Lin Mo stared at Lu Yunyan's deeply hypocritical face, then looked at the self-satisfied expressions of Su Qingya and the others. The whole situation struck him as absurd beyond belief. Work non-stop through the day, sleep in a shabby shed at night, and wait for leftovers? That was what they called a compromise. They truly treated him like a dog ready to obey every order. Ha, Lu Yunyan. Su Qingya. Lin Mo let out a cold laugh and slowly stood to his full height. At 185 centimeters tall, he loomed over the girls, radiating overwhelming pressure. Do you really think wilderness survival is as simple as playing a script-driven board game in an air-conditioned room? Do you honestly believe a handful of wild fruits from the backyard will let you comfortably coast through 30 days? What is your attitude? Made nervous by his stare, Su Qingya shrank back and shrieked. The teacher is offering you a chance to stay on the farm and giving you guidance. How dare you talk back? Spare me your lectures. Lin Mo swore sharply. Su Qingya flinched and stepped backward several paces. Sleep in that shed and work for you for nothing? You girls cannot even tell which greens are safe to eat. What right do you have to order me around? He slung his backpack over one shoulder without the slightest hint of hesitation. If you are so set on surviving as an all-female group, fine. I will leave you to it. He strode toward the front door of the log cabin. Lin Mo, where are you going? Lu Yunyan's face paled. She had never expected the usually well-behaved student to openly defy her. Will you ignore what your teacher says? Lin Mo paused, glanced over his shoulder, and looked at her as though she were foolish. Drop your teacher act. It disgusts me. From now on, whether you live or die has absolutely nothing to do with me. Lin Mo, do not act rashly. Breaking free from the girls holding her back, Xia Yuqing stamped her foot anxiously. It is far too dangerous out there. How will you survive all alone? Lin Mo's tone softened slightly as he glanced at Xia Yuqing and gave her a word of warning. Be careful staying with this crowd. If you cannot get by, come look for me outside. Bang! Lin Mo kicked open the loosely latched wooden door and walked out of the farm without looking back. Shouts and jeers erupted behind him at once. Go then. Do you think you scare us? We will do much better without you. He acts like some wilderness expert. He will starve within 2 days. That is right. Do not come begging us to open the door at night. Ignoring the taunts drifting out from the cabin, Lin Mo kept walking forward with icy determination. He climbed easily over the broken wooden fence surrounding the farm and stepped into the dangerous primeval forest. The instant his feet fully set foot inside the wilderness, a mechanical voice completely unlike the one 3 days prior boomed inside his mind. Divine Grade Survival System bound successfully. Host, Lin Mo Current Survival Points, 0. System Feature 1. Universal Analysis. Scan and analyze properties, weaknesses, and uses of wilderness plants and animals. 3 deep analyses available per day. Unlimited basic scans. System Feature 2. Survival Exchange. Earn survival points by killing wild animals, gathering supplies, and completing survival achievements. Points may be spent in Shop for modern supplies and blueprints. You are at Shop Level 1. Raise your survival rank to unlock advanced weapons and extraordinary abilities. Ding. New. User gift pack awarded upon first activation. Open now. Lin Mo relaxed his tightly clenched jaw. Mockery still drifted faintly from the farm, yet a cold smile spread across his lips. A system? It seemed fate itself was handing him an advantage. Open it. New. User gift pack opened successfully. Obtained. Tempered steel jungle machete ×1. Made of high-strength carbon steel. Extremely wear, resistant, and rust-proof. Obtained. Passive skill Wilderness Hunter. Moderately enhanced environmental awareness and stealth. Automatically master basic campsite construction, trap, making, and tracking techniques. Obtained. Physique Enhancement Potion ×1. Heals hidden bodily damage and fatigue. Permanently boosts muscle density and neural reaction speed. Weight settled suddenly in his palm. A half-meter-long matte, black machete materialized out of thin air, alongside a small test tube containing liquid. Lin Mo gripped its non-slip handle. Its solid weight felt reassuring. He pulled out the stopper and drank every drop. Warm liquid flowed down his throat and spread as heat throughout his body. His bones emitted faint popping sounds as loose muscles tightened. Within a few breaths, all exhaustion built up over 3 days vanished. His physical abilities had improved 3-fold. His senses sharpened completely. The rustle of wind through treetops and faint sounds of beetles crawling underground all came through crystal clear. Ding. Main phase quest triggered. Survive the first night. Quest objective. Locate safe drinking water and build a basic Defense Level 1 campsite within 4 hours before nightfall. Quest reward. 5 cubic meter portable storage space, plus 50 survival points. Lin Mo glanced back toward the farm. Survive as an all-female group? I hope none of you end up kneeling in mud begging me for food. Gripping his machete firmly, drawing on the survival knowledge granted by Wilderness Hunter, he marched deep into the shadow-dense woods. 2.5 hours later, the sun sank toward the horizon. Darkness quickly spread through the forest, and temperatures plummeted sharply. Lin Mo stopped before a sloped stretch of ground. Ahead, 2 huge boulders leaned against one another, forming a sheltered rock hollow. Basic scan confirmed. Excellent campsite. Wind, shielded, dry, elevated ground, easy to defend. A flowing stream lies 300 meters to the left. He was about to clear away overgrown weeds when bright red warning text flashed in his field of vision. System alert. Dangerous creature hiding in the bush ahead. Spend 1 deep analysis for precise detection. Remaining uses today, March 3rd. Confirm analysis. Universal analysis activated. An adult black, scaled viper hides beneath dead leaves 3 steps forward. Its venom causes heart failure within 10 minutes. Weaknesses, strike the head or pin down with heavy objects. Killing grants survival points. Lin Mo held his breath and stared at the pile of dead leaves. Without the system's warning, he would never have spotted its black scales concealed underneath. 1 careless step, and he would have been bitten in the calf. Instead of retreating, he bent down and picked up a fist-sized sharp rock. He weighed it briefly, then hurled it hard. Whoosh! The stone hit the edge of the leaf litter. Hiss! The black, scaled viper burst out of the leaves. Its triangular head reared high, flickering its scarlet tongue rapidly. Now, Lin Mo lunged forward. All his newly amplified strength flowed into his right arm. The black machete sliced through the air and swung downward sharply. Flish! The sharp blade bit through Snake's skin and severed its spine. Its head flew off. The headless body thrashed wildly among dead leaves, spraying foul, smelling black blood everywhere. Black, scaled viper killed successfully. Plus 15 survival points. Obtained viper meat ×1, venom fangs ×2, snake gallbladder ×1. smooth enough. Lin Mo wiped the blade clean using large broad leaves and stored his spoils inside his backpack. Having secured the viper's remains, Lin Mo turned toward the rock hollow. Two giant boulders formed a V shape, blocking wind from behind and the left side, and creating a semi-enclosed space. The ground stood nearly half a meter higher than its surroundings, so rainwater would never flood inside. It truly made a natural shelter. He grasped his tempered, steel jungle machete. Knowledge from wilderness hunter flooded his mind. Reading terrain, clearing campgrounds, building frameworks, setting traps, skills that once felt unfamiliar now felt instinctive. Stepping into the hollow, he swung his blade at knee-high weeds. Swish, swish, swish. The sharp black blade fell again and again. Tough shrubs and weeds toppled in swathes. Within a dozen minutes, the hollow lay completely cleared. Along the way, he crushed several palm-sized poisonous centipedes with the flat of his blade and dug up an abandoned rat burrow. After confirming no snakes or insects nested underground, he grabbed a thick branch, swept away loose stones, and smoothed out the uneven dirt. Next, build the frame. Machete in hand, he walked into nearby thick underbrush. He targeted hardwood branches about wrist thick with good flexibility. Every time the blade came down, it carved deep gashes into the wood. His strength had tripled after being modified by the enhancement serum. After felling more than a dozen 2-meter-long hardwood logs, his breathing remained perfectly steady. He dragged the timber back to camp. He lashed the two thickest logs together in a cross shape and propped them between cracks in a large boulder. The rest of the logs leaned against this frame one after another and were secured tightly with vines. Soon, a sturdy triangular framework stood upright. A frame alone won't block the mountain wind at night. Lin Mo headed back into the woods once more to gather dry moss, large banana leaves, and pine needles rich in resin. Banana leaves formed the bottom layer, shielding against wind and rain. Dry moss was layered in the middle for insulation. On the very outside, he fastened a net woven from vines to hold everything firmly in place. In less than an hour, a windproof, rainproof, well-hidden single-person shelter was fully completed. Lin Mo crawled inside to test it. Cold outside air was completely shut out. The interior stayed dry and warm, filled only with the faint scent of plants. I've got somewhere to stay. Time to set up my defenses. Stepping out of the shelter, he scanned his surroundings. System notice. A beast trail formed by medium-sized animal trampling detected 15 meters ahead on the left. System notice. Signs of small rodent activity detected 20 meters straight ahead. System notice. Feces left by a large carnivore behind the right side shrubbery. The scent has faded. It was left approximately 3 days ago. Nothing escaped the basic scan of universal analysis. Lin Mo set straight to work. On the beast trail to his left, he bent down a highly elastic young tree. He built a snare out of vines and fashioned a trigger mechanism with branches. The moment a beast stepped on it, the tree would snap upward violently. The vine noose would tighten and hoist the prey off the ground. Large carnivores might wander over on the right, and ordinary snares would not be nearly enough. Lin Mo hauled several huge rocks weighing well over 100 Gene in total. He suspended them high up with vines and stretched trip ropes across the animal path to build a rockfall trap. Once triggered, the boulders would crash down. Even wild wolves or wild boars that wandered in would have their spines instantly shattered. By the time he secured the final trap, night had fully fallen. Lin Mo brushed dirt off his hands and looked over the camp he had built entirely by himself. Shelter, fire pit area, warning lines, and 2 layers of traps, everything was ready. Ding. Main phase mission survived the first night, completed. Mission settlement in progress. Congratulations, host. You have established a level 1 camp and successfully laid defensive measures. Mission rewards, 5 cubic meter miniature storage space, plus 50 survival points. As the system prompt faded, a transparent space roughly 5 cubic meters in size appeared before Lin Mo's eyes. With a thought, his backpack, water canteen, and the corpse of the black-scaled viper vanished and settled neatly inside. This is far more convenient. Lin Mo lit a bonfire in front of his shelter and sat cross-legged. He threaded sliced snake meat onto wooden skewers and held them over the flames to roast slowly. Fat dripped onto the charcoal with soft, sizzling sounds. Before long, rich meat fragrance drifted through the air. Lin Mo tore off a piece of golden-brown roasted snake meat and chewed it slowly. Then he lifted his gaze toward the farm. I wonder what those self-important young ladies are having for dinner tonight. Meanwhile, 800 meters away from Lin Mo's camp stood the wilderness farm. Inside the rundown wooden hall, the mood stood in stark contrast to Lin Mo's peaceful campsite. It hummed with strange, feverish excitement. He really left? Isn't he hiding somewhere outside? Su Qingya stood by the door crack and peered out for a long time. Only after confirming no figure lingered in the dark night did she let out a long sigh of relief. She turned around, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. Girls, that annoying guy is really gone. Su Qingya clapped her hands and announced loudly. At last we can sleep soundly without worrying about some unpleasant person lurking around. Great. We've finally gotten rid of him. Exactly. Now that he's gone, the air feels fresher. Who does he even think he is? 30 odd of us can certainly survive without him. Cheers burst out among the young women in the hall, as if they had won an epic battle. Over the past 3 days, Lin Mo had taken on all the hardest physical labor. Still, he had rubbed these privileged young women the wrong way by constantly urging them to work and assigning tasks. Now that Lin Mo was gone, they felt a huge weight lift from their shoulders. Just some poor nobody, daring to act rude toward me. Su Qingya walked over to the fire. She sat casually on a broken wooden chair, crossed her legs, and sneered. I bet that useless man won't make it through tonight out here in the primeval forest. Maybe tomorrow morning we'll find his bones picked clean by wild animals right outside the farm. Ha ha, you're absolutely right, Qingya. Li Mingyao, a girl with big wavy hair and heavy makeup, quickly echoed her. She was Su Qingya's most loyal follower and best friend. She often threw her weight around at school, relying on Su Qingya's influence. While laughing, Li Mingyao's eyes drifted toward Xia Yuqing, who sat huddled silently in the corner. Furious just thinking about how Xia Yuqing had publicly stood up for Lin Mo against Su Qingya a moment earlier, she rolled her eyes. She let out a cold laugh and strode over to Xia Yuqing. Well, look who it is, our top student Xia. Li Mingyao loomed over Xia Yuqing, her tone sharp and sarcastic. What's wrong? Are you secretly upset because your good friend got driven away? Xia Yuqing sat on the floor with her knees drawn to her chest. She lifted her head and bit her lip. Li Mingyao, don't go too far. Now that Lin Mo is gone, who will fetch water? Who will find food tomorrow? Bang! Li Mingyao slammed her palm against a nearby wooden table. Xia Yuqing flinched violently. Xia Yuqing, don't try to scare us. She planted her hands on her hips and pointed straight at Xia Yuqing. The world does not revolve around any single person. We will still have water and food without Lin Mo. If you care for him so deeply, why didn't you run off with him just now? You. Eyes glistening, Xia Yuqing was too angry to speak. You what? Li Mingyao snorted and issued her orders. Since you love hard work so much, fine. Tomorrow morning, you will repair the broken wooden fence in the farm backyard. Also, clean up all the household trash piled in the corner over these 3 days and haul it outside the farm first thing tomorrow. Xia Yuqing's eyes widened in disbelief. Repairing the fence meant heavy-duty labor moving large logs. Work Lin Mo had always handled alone. The garbage reeked horribly and contained very unpleasant waste. Why should all of this fall only on me? Xia Yuqing protested, hurt. Why? Li Mingyao leaned close and lowered her voice, speaking only for Xia Yuqing to hear, her words vicious. Because you dared speak up for that unpleasant man and offended Qingya? Let me make this clear, Xia Yuqing. Qingya sets the rules here. You will do what you are told. Refuse, and you will not get a single drop of water tomorrow. She straightened up afterwards and scanned the other girls proudly. Listen up, everyone. Anyone else who defends that good-for-nothing Lin Mo will end up just like her. Silence fell briefly over the hall. Many girls looked at the bullied Xia Yuqing with sympathy in their eyes, yet none dared provoke Su Qingya and Li Mingyao. Xia Yuqing bit her lower lip hard, holding back tears. Her reddened eyes burned with humiliation and resentment. Li Mingyao, this is outright bullying. A sharp shout shattered the quiet of early morning. Zhang Yao, Xia Yuqing's hot-tempered, short-haired best friend, charged forward like an enraged leopard. She shoved Li Mingyao hard, just as Li Mingyao was berating Xia Yuqing. Oof! Caught off balance in high-heeled shoes, Li Mingyao staggered and nearly fell heavily onto the dusty wooden floor. What are you doing? Li Mingyao regained her footing and screamed furiously at Zhang Yao. What am I doing? I ought to ask you the same thing. Zhang Yao stood firmly in front of Xia Yuqing, chest heaving with rage. Repair the fence? Dispose of trash for 30-odd people? Are you treating Yuqing like your personal servant? When Lin Mo was here doing all this heavy work, you all stood by and watched. Now you have chased him away and dumped all the worst chores on the kind-hearted girl. Your petty revenge has gone far enough. Do you really think this farm belongs to you? Nearby, the normally gentle Lu Jia stepped forward, unable to stay silent any longer. She took Xia Yuqing's hand and glared at Li Mingyao. Exactly. Yuqing only spoke the truth. Why punish her like this? We are all trapped here together. Nobody should have to obey your arbitrary orders. Taken aback by their fierce pushback, Li Mengyao's face flushed bright red. Accustomed to throwing her weight around, she could not stand being shouted down. You dare defy us? Her shrill voice nearly shook the roof. If not her, then who? Should Qingya do it? Should I do it? She brought this on herself for sticking up for that obnoxious guy. She deserves to be taught a lesson. Don't you dare call her deserving of mistreatment. Furious, Zhang Yao rolled up her sleeves and moved forward. You want to start a fight? At that moment, a cold voice rang out from the back of the crowd. Su Qingya pushed through the crowd with over a dozen of her close followers, advancing with imposing momentum. She shot Zhang Yao a contemptuous glance. Zhang Yao, Lu Jia, get your facts straight. Women are in charge here. This is a collective, and we need rules. Xia Yuqing undermined group harmony yesterday. Doing chores to make amends is hardly unreasonable. Her followers immediately chimed in. Qingya is right. Someone has to do the work. Maybe all three of you should fix the fence, since you are such good friends. We never liked your self-righteous attitudes back at school. Zhang Yao laughed bitterly at their aggressive intimidation. Rules? Those are just rules you made up for yourself. You are running group bullying. Do you think driving Lin Mo away makes you queens of this place? You are mistaken. We are all equals here. We can split up and look after ourselves if we have to. Zhang Yao's unyielding stance stirred murmurs among the previously silent neutral girls. Zhang Yao has a point. It really is unfair putting all that work only on Xia Yuqing. I already thought it was wrong chasing Lin Mo away. Now they turn on one of their own. Shoo, keep your voice down, or Qingya will hear you. The hall split clearly into three camps. The clique led by Su Qingya and Li Mengyao acted domineeringly. Xia Yuqing, Zhang Yao and Lu Jia stood their ground against unfair treatment. A dozen remaining girls stayed neutral. They were too afraid to speak loudly, yet clearly uneasy. How dare you, Zhang Yao? Li Mengyao panicked seeing others lean towards Xia Yuqing's side. She lunged forward, ready to grab Zhang Yao's hair. Zhang Yao fought back, grabbing Li Mengyao's arm. The two were seconds away from full-blown physical conflict. Chaos loomed. Enough. Stop this at once. A commanding, angry shout boomed through the wooden house, stopping everything. Lu Yunyan walked down the stairs in slightly wrinkled formal business, where that still accentuated her figure. Her high heels clicked sharply against the steps. She adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses, her refined, mature face hard with frost. Look at yourselves. What kind of behavior is this? She stepped into the middle of the crowd. Her sharp gaze swept across Su Qingya, Zhang Yao, and everyone else. Her powerful aura instantly quieted the turmoil. We are trapped in this dangerous place. Our lives are constantly at risk. Instead of cooperating to survive, you bicker and nearly fight over trivial matters. Do you want wild animals to hear the noise and attack all of us? Mention of wild animals sent shivers through every girl. The tense fury in the room faded. Lu Yunyan softened her tone slightly and began mediating carefully. Su Qingya, Mengyao, assigning tasks is reasonable, yet you should choose fairer methods instead of piling all burdens onto one person. She offered mild criticism towards Su Qingya before turning toward Zhang Yao and Xia Yuqing. Zhang Yao, you too. Disagreements should be discussed. Resorting to physical confrontation solves nothing. Remember how Lin Mo left half an hour ago. He warned we would end up begging him if we could not survive. Lu Yunyan drew a deep breath, her gaze sharp. Do you want that arrogant man laughing at us from the shadows? Do you want to prove that without men, we women cannot survive out here? Her words struck heavy blows into every girl's heart, especially Su Qingya and Li Mengyao. The thought of Lin Mo mocking them from the forest edge redirected their anger elsewhere. You are right, teacher. Su Qingya gritted her teeth. We will never let that nobody look down on us. Though Zhang Yao still felt wronged, Lu Yunyan's moral pressure stopped her from further confrontation. She shot Li Mengyao a sharp glare and stepped back beside Xia Yuqing. Satisfaction flickered across Lu Yunyan's eyes as she regained control of the situation. Since none of us wish to be mocked, we must take action. Lu Yunyan cleared her throat and spoke loudly. Before sunset this evening, aside from a small stay-behind guard detail, everyone else will head out. Search for food and fresh water within safe boundaries centered on this cabin. We will prove that we can survive perfectly while relying solely on ourselves. As for Xia Yuqing, Zhang Yao, and Lu Jia, Lu Yunyan's eyes flickered toward the backyard. The three of you will draw water from the old well out back. The well water is murky but drinkable once it settles. Draw as many buckets as you can. Our whole group depends on this water supply. While presented as fair task allocation, Lu Yunyan had leaned towards Su Qingya's side. She assigned the most exhausting chore to the three girls who had spoken out. Xia Yuqing bit her lip and chose not to argue. Let's go. She tugged Zhang Yao and Lu Jia's sleeves, picked up 2 worn plastic buckets, and walked toward the backyard. Watching them leave, Su Qingyao and Li Mengyao exchanged glances filled with malicious amusement. Overgrown weeds covered the farm backyard. An old, half-abandoned, well-built from bluestone sat alone in the corner. Slippery moss coated the well rim. Damp soil and decaying wood filled the air. This is completely unfair. Lu Yunyan played favorites openly. Zhang Yao slammed her bucket on the ground, seething. 30-odd people depend on water hauled bucket by just 3 of us. She treats us like labor animals. Lu Jia frowned deeply and rubbed her sore shoulders. Lin Mo struggled, even carrying 2 full buckets yesterday. We cannot possibly move that much water. Stop complaining. Xia Yuqing gave her friends a faint, reassuring smile. They want to see us fail. We will not give them that satisfaction. We can carry smaller amounts and make more trips. She walked over to the well and leaned forward to peer down. The well ran deep, its stone walls slick with moss. Lin Mo had cleared debris from it 2 days earlier, so the water level sat only 3 to 4 meters below the rim. Dim light tinted the water a deep, dark green. Xia Yuqing prepared to lower the rope, tied bucket, then froze mid-motion. Yao Yao Jia Jia, come quick. Tremor and excitement colored her voice, her breathing quickening. What is it? A water snake. Alarmed, Zhang Yao hurried over. No, look over there. Xia Yuqing pointed down roughly half a meter beneath the water surface. Zhang Yao and Lu Jia squinted to see through the dimness. A huge dark shape swam slowly beneath the surface. Measuring roughly half a meter long, silver, gray scales glinted every time it twisted. Whoa, is that a fish? Zhang Yao's eyes went wide with shock. That fish must weigh close to 10 jin. Lu Jia swallowed hard. Hunger gnawed sharply at her stomach. How can there be such a big fish in an old well? Groundwater connections? Or maybe the old farm owner kept fish here. Xia Yuqing's eyes lit up, her mind racing. Whatever the reason, if we catch it, we will have meat to eat. For 3 days they had survived only on sour wild fruits and bland wild greens. They craved rich food desperately. But how do we get it out? The well opening is narrow and deep. We cannot climb down after it, Lu Jia said anxiously. We fish for it. Xia Yuqing made up her mind at once. Though a top student, she was no sheltered bookworm. As a child, she had often gone fishing with her grandfather in the countryside. Zhang Yao, find a long, sturdy dry branch. Lu Jia, collect long, tough vines that will not snap easily. I will look for something we can use as a hook and bait. Following Xia Yuqing's directions, the 3 split up to work. In less than 10 minutes, they gathered all their supplies. They had a 2-meter dry wooden pole, fishing line braided from 3 thin vines. For a hook, Xia Yuqing carefully sharpened a wood splinter with broken glass, carved a barb into it, and tied it firmly to the end of the vine line. The bait was made from extremely sour red wild fruits they had picked earlier, crushed, and smeared onto wooden thorns. Will this even work? Zhang Yao stared at the extremely crude fishing rod, filled with doubt. We can only try. Grass carp are omnivorous. These wild fruits have a strong scent. Hopefully it will draw one over. Xia Yuqing took a deep breath and slowly lowered the bait-laden contraption back down into the well. Plop! Tiny droplets splashed, and ripples spread outward across the dim well water. Time ticked by. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. Xia Yuqing gripped the wooden stick tightly, squatting beside the well. Her eyes never left the water's surface, and she barely dared to breathe. Fine beads of sweat dotted her forehead. Her legs throbbed from holding the squat for so long, yet she stayed utterly focused. Beside her, Zhang Yao and Lu Jia fidgeted anxiously. They did not dare make a sound, afraid of scaring away their prey below. More than 30 minutes slipped by. Xia Yuqing's arms ached so badly she could barely hold on, ready to give up, when the vine at the water's surface suddenly plunged sharply downward. It bit. A jolt shot through Xia Yuqing. A powerful tug traveled up the vine to the wooden stick, nearly yanking her straight into the well. Hurry! Help! Biting down hard, Xia Yuqing leaned backward with all her strength. Zhang Yao and Lu Jia reacted instantly. They lunged forward. The 3 girls locked together from behind, pulling on the stick like competitors in a tug of war. Splash! Well water churned violently. The large wounded fish thrashed wildly beneath the surface. Its massive tail slammed against the water, producing thunderous noise. 1, 2, 3. Heave! Xia Yuqing shouted. All 3 girls poured every ounce of strength they possessed. With a dull thud, a plump wild grass carp, its scales glinting silver under the sunlight, was hauled forcefully out of the well and crashed heavily onto the bluestone beside it. The fish flapped furiously on the ground, jaws gaping, gills heaving. It weighed well over 12 Jin. Yeah, we caught it. We actually caught it. Overjoyed, Zhang Yao jumped up and down, throwing her arms around Xia Yuqing and Lu Jia. Staring down at the big fish, a bright smile, the first in 3 days, spread across Xia Yuqing's pale face. This fish would feed the three of them well for several days. Their joy did not last long. Rapid footsteps echoed from the backyard entrance. What is all this noise? Why are you three yelling? Su Qingyao walked over, followed by Li Mengyao and several other girls, her face full of irritation. When their eyes fell on the still, flapping 12, Jin carp on the stone slab, every voice died away. Su Qingyao's eyes went wide. She swallowed hard. Fish. Meat. Yeah, look, it's a fish. Such a huge one. Li Mingyao's voice shook with excitement. Su Qingyao thought fast. The shock on her face instantly shifted to a sense of entitlement. She strode forward, completely ignoring Xia Yuqing and her friends, and pointed at the fish lying on the ground. Wonderful. I knew all those rotten fruits we tossed into the well would pay off. This fish grew fat feeding on what we threw in. Stunned by this brazen lie, Xia Yuqing and the other two girls froze. Su Qingya, how shameless can you be? Zhang Yao snapped out of it first, trembling with rage. What do you mean it was fed by your fruit? Yuqing squatted there for more than half an hour to catch this fish. This has absolutely nothing to do with you. How can you say that? Li Mingyao stepped forward at once, planting herself in front of the fish. This farm belongs to all of us as a group. This well belongs to everyone, so the fish in it is collective property too. Besides, if you hadn't sent you to fetch water, you would never have found this fish. That is brilliant leadership. You are lying. Lu Jia shouted angrily. You are nothing but robbers. Su Qingyao let out a cold laugh and paid no heed to their protests. She waved toward the girls behind her. Mengyao, take the fish. Su Qingyao tilted her chin high and spoke in a condescending, patronizing tone. Tonight we will hold a fish roast feast. We celebrate driving Lin Mo away and starting our new self-reliant girls' survival life. And as for you three, Su Qingyao glanced scornfully at Xia Yuqing. Since you pulled the fish out, you may have some fish soup tonight. I will fight you. Zhang Yao snapped. Her self-control shattered completely. Like an enraged leopard, she bent down, seized the rough dry wooden stick they had used for fishing, and swung it hard towards Su Qingyao and Li Mingyao. The stick cut through the air with a low whoosh. Ah! Li Mingyao shrieked. She pulled her hands back as though burned before she could grab the carp. Her foot slipped, and she landed hard on the moss-covered stone, her face drained of color. Su Qingyao's eyes widened. She stepped backward instinctively. Seeing the dozen-plus other girls behind her, she suppressed her panic and blustered. Zhang Yao, are you crazy? Strike me, and we will kick you straight off this farm. Kick me out. I don't care. Even if I leave, I will give you a piece of my mind. Veins bulged on Zhang Yao's forehead as she lifted the stick again. At that critical moment, cold, trembling hands wrapped tightly around Zhang Yao's waist from behind. Yao, stop. Please don't do something reckless. Xia Yuqing hung onto her back, tears streaming down her cheeks. Droplets splattered onto Zhang Yao's hands. Yuqing, let go. They are bullying us outrageously. Yuqing waited half an hour by that well to catch this fish. Why should they steal it? Zhang Yao struggled, careful not to hurt Xia Yuqing clinging to her. I know all of it. Xia Yuqing shook her head, her voice shaking violently. But think what will happen if we have a full-on fight. They will throw us out. Lin Mo can survive out in the wild on his own. What about us? 3 girls with no weapons. We cannot even tell directions apart. Once night falls, any wild beast could kill us. Her words hit Zhang Yao and Lu Jia like ice, cold water. True enough. Dense, dangerous wilderness surrounded them. Lin Mo was gone. The 30-odd girls on the farm might be selfish, but the run-down wooden huts and fences still offered a thin measure of safety. If they got expelled, death awaited them. They had to endure for the sake of survival. Zhang Yao's arm shook violently as she held the stick high. Humiliation burned in her eyes. Her fingers loosened. Thud. The stick clattered onto the blue stone. That is much more reasonable. All trace of fright vanished from Su Qingyao's face. A triumphant smirk curled her lips. She smoothed her hair slowly and looked down on the 3 girls as if they were pitiful strays. On this farm, majority rules. I take this fish for the good of everyone. She nudged Li Mingyao with her foot. What are you waiting for? Take this collective prize. Tonight we eat well. Li Mingyao scrambled up, brushed dirt off her trousers, and marched haughtily over to the fish. Pinching its gill between 2 fingers, she lifted the still weakly, twitching 12 Jin carp. She snorted loudly as she walked past the three girls. Come on, girls, let's get ready for our bonfire celebration. Su Qingya walked away like a triumphant queen with her followers trailing behind her. Only Xia Yuqing, Zhang Yao, and Lu Jia remained beside the cold, damp well. Cold wind cut through their thin clothing. Yuqing, I am so sorry. Zhang Yao sank to the ground, burying her face in her hands and sobbing. I am useless. I cannot even defend what is ours. Xia Yuqing knelt beside her, fighting back her own heartache, and hugged her, patting her back gently. It is all right. As long as we are alive, there will be chances. Come, let us finish fetching water. Night fell, swallowing the wilderness farm in deep darkness. A large bonfire blazed in front of the wooden huts, holding back the bitter chill. For 3 days these girls had suffered hardship. Tonight brought a long, awaited celebration. The 12 Gene grass carp had been gutted and cleaned. Spitted on thick branches, it turned slowly over the flames. Fire licked the fish. Soon its skin crisped and curled. Golden fat oozed from the flesh, dripping onto hot charcoal with a sizzle. It released a rich, mouth-watering aroma. The scent drifted everywhere. More than 30 girls sat around, swallowing repeatedly, eyes fixed greedily on the roasting fish. For 3 days they had survived only on sour wild berries and bitter greens, with almost no fat in their diets. Su Qingya sat in the warmest, most prominent spot near the bonfire. She twirled the rusty knife Lin Mo had left behind, behaving like the undisputed leader. All right, it is nearly done. Su Qingya stood up and slit the fish's belly open with the knife. Tender white flesh steamed out. Satisfied, she raised her voice. Today marks our first day of true independent survival, free from Lin Mo. This fish is our reward. Now I will divide it. All the girls leaned forward, hunger shining in their eyes. Su Qingya's next move crushed most of their hopes. Using the knife, she sliced off the biggest, boneless midsection of the fish, at least 7 or 8 gene of meat. She placed this generous portion in a relatively clean wooden basin and carried it over to herself, Li Mengyao, her close friends, and Lu Yunyan. Mengyao, Xiaoya, you all worked hard keeping order today. And Teacher Lu. Su Qingya spoke to Lu Yunyan with unctuous deference. Lu Yunyan sat cross, lagged beside the fire. She still wore her formal fitted outfit. She held a string of wooden prayer beads and turned them one by one slowly. Behind her gold-rimmed glasses, her cool, dignified bearing gave her an odd, detached aura. Teacher Lu mediated disputes and contributed greatly. You deserve extra nourishment. Lu Yunyan lifted her eyes slightly and paused, turning the beads. She adjusted her glasses calmly. Her tone was cool and matter of fact. Thank you, Qingya. All things follow their natural order. Since it has been apportioned, I shall accept it. Her aloof readiness to accept special treatment emboldened Li Mengyao and the others. Thank you, Yaya. You are the best. Li Mengyao tore off a large chunk, burning her mouth, yet chewing loudly. Wow, this tastes amazing. So fresh. The remaining 20+ girls sat frozen. What about us? One girl asked timidly. Su Qingya picked bones from her fish without looking up and gestured toward the spit with the tip of her knife. Be patient. There is still the head, tail, and scraps on the bones. Divide those among yourselves. Be nice to each other. No fighting. Silence fell over the clearing. What little remained weighed barely 3 or 4 gene total. Once bones were removed, there was hardly enough meat for 20 people to each have a tiny mouthful. Su Qingya, this is terribly unfair. A faint protest rose from the crowd. Unfair. Su Qingya snapped her head around, her gaze sharp. We in leadership bear the heaviest mental burdens. Brain work consumes lots of energy. We deserve extra food. Without Teacher Lu and myself organizing everything, you would not even have hot soup. Anyone unhappy can go back inside. Cowed, the girl fell silent. Hunger outweighed pride. 20-odd girls swarmed toward the fish head and tail, shoving and arguing as they scraped for every last shred of meat. The scene was pitiful. Right at the outer edge of the crowd sat Xia Yuqing, Zhang Yao, and Lu Jia on cold, muddy ground. Before them lay a broken plastic bottle, bottom holding murky fish soup, the charity Su Qingya had sent them to show her generosity. Zhang Yao stared at fish scales floating in the liquid. She bit her lip hard to hold back tears. Nearby, Su Qingya's inner circle ate their fill. 7 to 8 gene of rich meat was more than enough for them to eat to fullness. Burp. Li Mengyao rubbed her rounded stomach. It feels so good to be full. Shame there is no salt, though. Be grateful you have food at all. Su Qingya wiped her mouth neatly with scrap paper. Once full, her eyes fell on the leftover sour red wild fruits, the food Xia Yuqing's group had saved for tomorrow. Terrible, tasting sour garbage fruit. Disgusted, Su Qingya grabbed the handful of berries and tossed them straight into the bonfire. Crackle, sizzle. The fruits charred and burst, filling the air with acrid smoke. Su Qingya, what have you done? Having endured as long as she could, Xia Yuqing jumped to her feet. Those were our food for tomorrow. You cannot just throw them away. The girls fighting over scraps stopped and stared. In the wilderness, food meant life. Wasting food like this was appalling. What is it to you if I throw away a few worthless berries? Su Qingya sneered and looked Xia Yuqing up and down with malice. Xia Yuqing, you always think like someone trapped in poverty. Catching this fish proves resources are abundant nearby. Go catch another tomorrow. Only people like you treat worthless berries as precious treasure. This is about burning our boats. Leaving no fallback pushes everyone to become better survivors. You understand nothing. Stunned by such shameless reasoning, Xia Yuqing trembled all over, lost for words. Tension hung heavy in the clearing. Lu Yunyan's brows drew together almost imperceptibly. While she thought Su Qingya had gone too far, their interests were aligned. She saw no reason to contradict her. She closed her eyes and kept turning her prayer beads, pretending not to notice. Though many other girls resented what had happened, hunger and fear kept them obedient. They lowered their heads. Night wind gusted, making the bonfire flicker. Temperatures plummeted sharply, and bitter cold washed over the open space. At that moment, rustle, crack. From the pitch black forest beyond the wooden huts came unsettling sounds. Heavy footsteps told of a very large creature crushing dead branches as it roamed through darkness. 800 meters away, on a sloped hillside, lay Lin Mo's campsite. Compared with all the conflict and hunger on the farm, Lin Mo's situation could not have been more different. Huff, seated beside his warm bonfire, Lin Mo bit into the final piece of golden, crispy roasted snake meat. Thanks to the enhancement serum, his body digested food extremely well. A several, Jean Black, scaled snake filled him with vigor, his muscles brimming with energy. He stood up and brushed crumbs off his hands, gazing out into the dark beyond camp. Full and warm. Time to check my traps. He pulled a thick burning stick from the fire to use as a torch, grabbed his high-quality machete, and walked toward an animal trail 15 meters ahead. As he neared his trap line, sharp ears picked up faint sounds of struggle and creaking taut rope. He hurried forward. Torchlight illuminated the scene. A young bent tree, spring trap, had snapped upright. Hanging suspended in mid-air, vine nooses held 2 gray, furred bundles. All, things analysis activated, adult gray hairs. Approximately 8 gene each. Excellent, tasting safe meat. 2 fat hairs. The nooses had closed around their necks. They lay motionless, dead. Lin Mo smiled in satisfaction. His survival, hunter knowledge of trap, building really worked. A great haul on the very first night. He sliced the vines free and lifted the heavy hairs. A mechanical system notification sounded inside his mind. Ding. You have successfully captured prey using traps. Hidden achievement. First hunt unlocked. Plus 30 survival points awarded. Adding the 50 points for building my level 1 camp, I now have 80 survival points total, Lin Mo calculated silently. Carrying the hairs back to camp, he set them down on a clean stone slab. He mentally opened his level 1 system shop. A virtual panel unfolded before his eyes, displaying various basic modern supplies. Purified water 1L, 5 survival points hard, tack biscuit 1 pack. 5 survival points basic first aid kit. 20 survival points table salt 500 g. 10 survival points mixed barbecue seasoning cumin, chili powder, 10 survival points. Looking over the goods, Lin Mo made his choice without hesitation. Redeem table salt and mixed barbecue seasoning. Ding. 20 survival points deducted. Redemption complete. Remaining, 60 survival points. Light flashed. 2 packaged seasoning tins materialized in his hands. He marveled at these manufactured goods. While others fought to stay alive in the wilderness, he was living quite comfortably. Without delay, he drew his machete and set to butchering the hares. Boosted by his passive wilderness hunter skill, he worked with the speed and skill of an experienced butcher. Disemboweling, skinning, removing innards, washing away blood, all flowed smoothly. Within 10 minutes, both hares were fully prepared. He threaded them onto thick wooden spits and placed them over the bonfire. Flames licked the rabbit meat. Heat drove surface moisture away as the flesh tightened. Lin Mo turned the spit steadily. Once golden, brown crust formed, he opened his new seasoning tins. Fine white salt sprinkled across sizzling meat, followed by bright, red chili powder and fragrant cumin. Sizzle. When cumin and chili powder touched hot grease, An incredibly rich barbecue aroma burst forth, carried far by the night breeze for over 100 meters. Lin Mo tore off a glistening rabbit leg and bit in deeply. Crisp outside, juicy inside. Human and mild chili danced across his taste buds. Something ordinary in civilization became a supreme delicacy out in the wild. Amazing. He ate heartily, grease glistening around his mouth. Sheltered behind his sturdy rock and timber windbreak, insulated by moss bedding, with a roaring fire before him, Lin Mo felt safe and content amid the dangerous night. But wilderness cruelty spared no one simply because one person was comfortable. While Lin Mo enjoyed his roast hare, temperatures dropped abruptly and drastically. Evening temperatures had hovered around 15 degrees Celsius. Within barely 10 minutes, the mercury plunged by more than 12 degrees, hovering just above freezing. Howl, howl. Bitter wind tore through treetops, letting out eerie wails. Protected by his windbreak and bonfire, Lin Mo felt only a slight chill. He remained largely unaffected. Yet 800 meters away, the wilderness farm had descended into utter chaos and horror. On the open ground before the farm's log cabin, the once roaring campfire had dwindled. The girls had been too lazy during the day to gather enough dry firewood, and now only faint, smoldering embers glowed feebly against the bitter wind. It's so cold. Why has it gotten this cold all of a sudden? Su Qingya hugged herself tightly, shaking violently all over. Her cropped athletic top offered barely more protection than thin gauze against the near-freezing gusts. The other girls fared even worse. Dressed mostly in light autumn clothing, they huddled together for warmth, their teeth chattering loudly. Firewood. We've run out of firewood. Someone go get some. Li Mingyao's lips had turned purple, her voice trembling. But all around lay pitch, black darkness. How could anyone bring themselves to step away from the group and venture into the shadow, choked woods? No one moved. Everyone waited for somebody else to volunteer. Just as the girls, on the brink of freezing, prepared to retreat into the equally draft-ridden cabin for shelter, a sound cut through the night. Aru, a wild, blood-curdling wolf howl rose from the deep forest behind the farm, piercing the sky. It echoed across the open wilderness like an icy blade, shattering the quiet and striking terror into every girl's heart. The air seemed to freeze solid. They froze mid-huddle, hardly daring to breathe. Aru, aru, woo. Before they could collect themselves, more howls answered from different parts of the forest, growing steadily louder and nearer. A large pack of wolves was closing in on the farm. Wolves, there are wolves. Someone screamed in terror, triggering total panic. Aya, help, run, get inside. 30 odd girls descended into complete hysteria. Screaming and sobbing, they stampeded toward the cabin door. Some were knocked to the ground and trampled in the crush. Others fled barefoot, too terrified to stop for their shoes. Su Qingya was holding a half-eaten fishbone. At the approaching howls, she flinched violently, and the bone slipped from her hand to land in the mud. Her carefully made-up face drained completely of color. Qingya, hurry! Li Mingyao grabbed her arm and dragged her inside. Bang! The last girl stumbled through the doorway. Shaking hands slammed the heavy wooden door shut. Move the tables. Block the door. Several stronger girls shouted in panic, piling solid wooden furniture against the door. Deep darkness swallowed the cabin hall. Outside, wolf howls rang almost against the walls, each note scraping at the girls' frayed nerves. Heavy, ragged breathing and non-stop chattering of teeth filled the dark space. Nobody dared speak above a whisper, afraid of drawing attention. A sharp, unpleasant smell hung in the air. One girl had lost control out of fright, yet no one paid it any mind. Light, make a light. A tearful voice trembled through the darkness. A lighter flickered to life. Torches Lin Mo had made earlier with pine resin and rags were lit and wedged into wall cracks. Flickering yellow flames chased back some of the darkness. 30 odd girls huddled tightly together in the center of the hall, faces deathly pale. Su Qingya cowered deep within the crowd, her makeup ruined by cold sweat. She dug her fingernails hard into Li Mingyao's arm, shaking uncontrollably. Wolves, real wolves. How could there be wolves? She babbled in shock. Amid the oppressive dread, Lu Yunyan slowly stood up from the corner. She took a deep breath, adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses. She fought down her own fear and tried to regain her composure as a teacher. Calm down, everyone. Do not panic. Her voice rang through the hall, faintly shaky, yet steady enough to draw every gaze toward her. Lu Yunyan scanned the room, looking at the barred door and broken glass. Less windows, her brows knotted tight. Girls, this is extremely serious. We do not know how many wolves are out there. This old cabin is falling apart and full of gaps. If the beasts catch our scent and attack, this flimsy door and cloth-covered windows will not hold. Hope crumbled instantly. Several girls broke down into quiet sobs. What can we do, Ms. Lu? We don't want to die, one girl cried. Lu Yunyan's eyes sharpened. We cannot simply wait for disaster. We must organize our defenses. I suggest that while some stay indoors, others take weapons and keep watch along the outer corridor and the fragile western fence. Early warnings will give us time to react. If wolves sneak up unseen, none of us will survive. A heavy silence fell. Keep watch outside, in pitch black darkness where wolves lurked. That was tantamount to walking straight into danger. Every girl ducked her head, wishing to vanish so she would not be chosen. For 30 long seconds, only heavy breathing could be heard. Lu Yunyan's expression soured. She had made the suggestion, yet as their instructor she had no intention of risking herself. The stand-off dragged on, tension mounting. Then Su Qingya, who had been trembling within the crowd, narrowed her eyes. A cold, malicious smile spread across her pale face. She pushed Li Mengyao aside, stepped forward, and struck a self-righteous pose. Ms. Lu is absolutely right. At a moment like this, somebody has to step up for everyone's sake. Her loud voice boomed across the silent room. She spun around, her eyes locking onto Xia Yuqing, Zhang Yao, and Lu Jia sitting on the far edge. Since no one volunteers, as one of our group leaders, I will make the call. Her red, polished finger pointed straight at Xia Yuqing. Xia Yuqing, you acted so smug earlier when you caught that big fish by the well. Since you are so capable and lucky, protecting all of us should be your responsibility. The three of you argued against me and undermined group harmony during the day. This is your chance to make amends. Grab wooden spears and go stand guard by the western fence and corridor right now. A chill seemed to sweep through the hall. Everyone stared in disbelief. Sending 3 unarmed young women out into the night, filled with wolves, was practically sentencing them to harm. Xia Yuqing flinched and lifted her head, shocked and furious. Su Qingya had stolen her fish that afternoon, and now she meant to force them out to face the wolves. Su Qingya, have you lost your mind? Lu Jiao whimpered in terror. Wolves are outside. Sending us out there is putting us in terrible danger. Danger? That is a harsh way to put it. Su Qingya scoffed, folding her arms and lifting her chin arrogantly. This is a necessary sacrifice for the good of everyone. If you refuse, wolves could break in and kill all of us. Someone has to do it. You 3 keep to yourselves. When the group needs you, how can you refuse? Where is your sense of duty? What about you? Zhang Yao's eyes burned. She shot to her feet and glared at Su Qingya. You keep talking about the group. Why don't you go stand guard yourself? Me? Su Qingya laughed as though hearing something ridiculous, completely unashamed. Zhang Yao, are you being foolish? Meng Yao and I are the core leadership of this group. We handle strategy and thinking work. We need to stay safely indoors to plan and direct our response. If our leaders get hurt, everyone will be lost. It makes perfect sense for us to stay protected. People doing practical work should take the most dangerous posts. Her shameless reasoning hung heavy in the air. Even neutral girls felt revolted. Fear-driven cowardice had been dressed up as noble logic. Strategy? That is nonsense. Xia Yuqing's face burned with anger. Tears welled in her eyes, yet she forced them back. She had lost all faith in their all-female group. Zhang Yao's self-control finally snapped. Rage over the stolen fish, humiliation and mortal despair welled up and exploded. That's enough, she roared, snatching a sharpened wooden spear Lin Mo had made. Gripping it firmly, she pointed its sharp tip straight towards Su Qingya. Speak another word, and I will not hold back. Even if the wolves get me, I will make you answer for this. You, what are you doing? At sight of the spear, Su Qingya's arrogance vanished instantly. She stumbled backward and fell hard onto the floor, scrambling backward in fright. Zhang Yao, put that down. Are you out of your senses? Li Mengyao, terrified yet loyal to her friend, stepped forward shouting. Harming Qingya would destroy our leadership. I have had enough of your so-called leadership. Zhang Yao swung the spear toward Li Mengyao, pressing the tip against her chest. Li Mengyao shrieked and scurried away across the floor. Zhang Yao looked down at Su Qingya sprawled on the ground, voice hoarse with fury. Su Qingya, you cannot treat people however you please. That fish was caught by Xia Yuqing. You and your friends took all of it and left nothing for us. You even burned the wild berries we saved for tomorrow. Now wolves are at our door and you want us to act as bait. You contribute nothing except bullying others. You will not make us sacrifice ourselves for your safety. If we die tonight, we all die together. Su Qingya could find no retort, chest heaving with rage. The neutral girls could stay silent no longer. Su Qingya's words had struck fear deep inside them. If she could send Xia Yuqing's trio out to danger today, any of them might be next. What you just said was completely unreasonable. A tall girl with a ponytail, named Chun, she stepped forward. She was quiet normally but trained in Sanda and spoke her mind freely. She looked coldly at Su Qingya on the floor. Setting aside how you pushed Lin Mo away earlier, this is no time for your privileged attitude. Xia Yuqing caught that fish. You took her food, yet demand she risk her life for you. How can you do that? Her words resonated with the others. She really is taking advantage of everyone. All this talk about leadership is just cowardice. She wants scapegoats. This is the wilderness. Nobody owes you their life. You. Su Qingya shook all over, her pride shattered. She scrambled to her feet and shouted wildly. Do you know who I am? My father runs Su Corporation. We have unlimited wealth. When I get out alive, you will regret this. I will use my influence to ruin your futures. You will struggle to find even the most basic work. I will make you beg for mercy. Her threats might have intimidated them back in the city, yet in this life, or death wilderness, they sounded absurd. Chun, she let out a bitter laugh. Have you lost touch with reality? Money means nothing when wolves are about to attack. A wolf will not care who your father is when it lunges for you. Zhang Yao slammed the butt of the spear against the floor. Very well. Use your wealth to drive the wolves away then. Go on, great strategist. Su Qingya grew so enraged, she nearly fainted. Lu Yunyan watched the spiraling conflict with a heavy frown. Her plan had collapsed. Unity within the group was completely broken, as tempers flared, and physical conflict seemed imminent. A deafening crack echoed from the western outer wall. The whole cabin shook. Inside, every argument died instantly. Su Qingya's shouts died in her throat. Zhang Yao froze mid, motion with spear raised. Every pair of eyes locked onto the thin western wall. Heavy, foul, smelling beast, breathing sounded on the other side. Something huge pressed itself against the wood, sniffing for the scent of living humans. Claws crunched dry leaves. A girl almost screamed, but was muffled by her friend. Both wept silently. Crash. The western fence gave way entirely. Beasts had broken through the outer barrier and stepped onto the farm compound. They are inside. Li Mingyao's teeth chattered uncontrollably, losing control out of overwhelming terror. Before anyone could process this horror, harsh scraping echoed from the main door. Sharp claws raked the wood, sending splinters flying. Every scratch made the door groan under strain. Boom. A heavy blow shook the door hard. The table stacked against it lurched. Boom. 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 Again and again heavy impacts slammed against the door. Dust and wood shavings showered the girls holding the furniture in place. None dared brush them away. Only ragged, terrified breathing and chattering teeth filled the hall. The door, it is going to break. A girl huddled in the back buried her mouth in her hands, tears streaming down her face, barely able to form coherent sentences. Shut up. Do you want to draw them all over here? Chun-Shi lowered her voice and let out a low, bestial snarl. Her eyes, usually half-lidded and indifferent, were now bloodshot. Having trained in Sanda for several years, Chun-Shi understood better than any of the other girls that showing fear and panic before wild beasts was the same as baring your neck for them. She drew a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. The wooden door shook violently under impacts, yet Lin Mu had reinforced it from inside earlier that day with several thick, sturdy hardwood beams. No matter how strong the beasts outside were, they could not smash through it anytime soon. That did not mean they were safe. Abandoned as this farm cabin was, besides the main door, it had multiple critical weak points. Chun-Shi gritted her teeth and tightened her grip on a sharpened wooden spear she had picked up off the floor, one Lin Mu had made during the day. Hugging the cold, damp wall, she crouched low and moved with deliberate, quiet steps toward the west, side window draped in tattered cloth. Chun-Shi, where are you going? Xia Yuqing trembled all over. Seeing Chun-Shi pull away from the group, she instinctively reached out to stop her. Stay quiet. Chun-Shi held a finger to her lips. Fine beads of sweat dotted her forehead. She edged toward the west, side window. Its glass had long since shattered years before. Lin Mu had only been able to cover the opening roughly with planks and rags. It kept out the wind, but it offered almost no defense against wild animals. Pressing flat against the wall, she slowed her breathing to nearly nothing. Tilting her head, she peered through a narrow gap less than 2 centimeters wide between the boards, guided by the faint, pale moonlight outside. One glance was all it took. Her pupils shrank to pinpricks, and icy dread shot straight up her spine. No colossal monster stood out on the open ground, yet what she saw filled her with far greater despair. Beneath the dim night sky, 7 or 8 large gray, Brown shapes paced near the broken fence mended that very afternoon. Wolves. Full-grown gray wolves. Each one was as massive as a young calf, with powerful, muscular limbs. Their gray, brown fur rippled in the cold wind. Instead of mindlessly throwing themselves against the door all at once, they fanned out around the run-down cabin like disciplined soldiers, padding silently back and forth. Most horrifying of all were their eyes, glowing eerie green in the darkness, cold, greedy, bloodthirsty. The largest alpha wolf lifted its head, its wet black nose sniffing frantically at the air. It caught the scent of terror rolling off the dozens of girls trapped inside. Its lips pulled back, revealing jagged fangs glistening with viscous saliva. She swallowed hard. Sweat soaked her palms around the spear. One her Sonda training might have given her a fighting chance. Against 7 or 8 starved adult gray wolves, her skills amounted to nothing. It's a pack of wolves. Spinning around, she leaned back against the wall. Her face drained of color as she faced the huddle of terrified girls, her voice hoarse with overwhelming tension. 7 or 8 gray wolves are out there. Move. Grab whatever you can carry and bar every door and window. Her words crashed through the hall like a bomb. Wolves, they really are wolves. We're going to die, sob. Despair swept through the room. Several girls whose nerves had snapped broke down weeping. Some collapsed onto the floor, too terrified to stand. Stop crying. Do you want to die? She roared. She hurried back to the crowd and tossed 2 extra wooden spears onto the floor. Anyone who wants to live, get moving. Grab a weapon. This shack leaks everywhere. The main door will hold for now, but the windows won't keep them out. Lu Yunyan, who had huddled quietly in the corner, froze at those words. Her poised, dignified features twisted with raw terror. She knew perfectly well that her status as their chaperone meant nothing once the wolves got inside. Survival outweighed all dignity. Scrambling to her feet, bare-footed, she stamped across the dusty floorboards. Hurry. Do as Chunshi says. Move furniture to block the openings, she shouted hoarsely. She seized the edge of a heavy solid wood square table and strained to drag it toward the west side window. Yet it was far too heavy for her alone. Xia Yuqing. Zhang Yao. Help me, she yelled. Tears streamed down Xia Yuqing's face. Yet her will to survive pushed her forward. She and the deathly, pale Zhang Yao rushed over. Their palms blistered against rough timber as the 3 women heaved the heavy table into place beneath the west side window, bracing it hard against the fragile wall. She quickly handed out the remaining spears. Hold them tight. If any wolf tries to push through, stab hard for its eyes and nose. Just as everyone scrambled desperately to prepare, a shrill scream exploded from the back of the room. Stay back. Don't hurt me. Li Mingyao, who had been arrogant and domineering before disaster struck, completely fell apart. Her legs shook uncontrollably, and she sank onto the floor, disheveled and paralyzed by fright. Instead of lending a hand to block the windows, she scrambled on all fours toward an octagonal table in the corner. Get out of my way. She shoved a nearby girl aside and scrambled under the table, curling herself into a tight ball. She buried her face behind her arms, shaking violently and whimpering repetitively. Don't hurt me. Go after them. Leave me alone. Nearby, Su Qingya did not scream along with the others. Leaning against a support pillar, she was pale, yet her beautiful eyes burned with chilling calculation. Her right hand squeezed tight around a rusty cleaning knife she had kept from earlier that day. Her fingernails dug deep into her palm. Quietly shifting her position, she stationed herself behind the octagonal table where Li Mingyao hid. She was weighing her options. If wolves burst through, she would shove Li Mingyao out as a distraction to buy herself a split second to escape. Out here in the wilderness, another person's life could be the stepping stone to her own survival. While chaos erupted inside the cabin, the constant pounding against the main door fell abruptly silent. A suffocating hush descended over the hall. Have they gone? One girl whispered shakily. Be quiet. She's heart hammered in her chest. The prickling sensation of being hunted had not faded. It multiplied sharply. Soft scratching sounds echoed along the outer wall and circled toward the west side. The wolves had realized the main door could not be broken easily. They had heard the noise of furniture being moved by the west window. Their attack had shifted. Creak. A nauseating scraping noise came from outside the frail west side frame. Wolf claws bit deep into the timber. A thick, revolting stench flooded through gaps in the rags. The window frame groaned under unbearable stress, bending and threatening to splinter apart. They are right outside that window. Chun-Shi's eyes blazed. Gripping her spear firmly, she shouted sharply. Everyone get back. Crack, boom. Before Chun Shi's warning faded, the west wall caved in. The window, poorly boarded over, gave way completely. Sharp splinters and fragments flew inward, slamming hard against the heavy table beneath it. Cold wind gusted inside, carrying the overpowering stench of rot and carnage. Screams tore through the night. 30-odd girls lost all self-control. In the pale moonlight, everyone saw two huge dark shapes leap through the shattered opening. Two fully grown gray wolves, nearly 2 meters long. Their gray, brown fur stood rigid. Their limbs were thick as tree trunks. Saliva dripped from their bared fangs, and their vertical pupils burned with ghostly green light. Thud! Both wolves bounded over the blocking table and landed heavily on the floor. Their green eyes swept over the panic-stricken, scrambling crowd with cruel hunger. Run! Run for your lives! The hall descended into bedlam. Girls surged in every direction, shoving one another, stampeding as they hunted for somewhere to hide. Some tried scrambling up the stairs, only to be dragged back down. Others rushed for the main door and remembered they had blocked it shut themselves. In the chaos, Wang Meng, who usually followed close behind Su Qingya, froze, rooted to the floor, paralyzed by terror. She grabbed a broken broom and waved it wildly. Go away. Stay back, she shrieked. The alpha wolf lowered its body. A low rumble rolled in its throat. Human-like mockery flickered in its glowing green eyes. Then it struck, launching its 200-pound body forward like a cannonball. It ignored the harmless broom entirely. Wang Ming could not react in time. The beast crashed into her chest. A sickening crack echoed as ribs fractured. She crashed onto her back. Before she could struggle, the wolf's jaws clamped down hard on her throat. Bone crunched horribly. Hot blood sprayed everywhere, painting the floor deep red. Wang Ming's body convulsed briefly before going limp. She was dead. Hiding beneath the octagonal table, Li Mingyao witnessed every horrific second. Blood splattered onto the table leg right before her eyes. A strangled gasp escaped her, and she fainted clean away from overwhelming fright. Su Qingya, standing behind the table with her rusty knife ready to sacrifice someone else for her own escape, was shattered by the gruesome sight. The metallic tang of blood filled her nostrils. All her cold calculations vanished. Driven by raw terror, she scrambled toward an old wooden wardrobe in the corner. She roughly shoved another girl out of her path, threw open the wardrobe door, squeezed herself inside amid moldering rubbish, and slammed it shut. Clapping a hand tight over her mouth, she held her breath, shaking, as violence raged outside. Fueled by blood, the second wolf grew frenzied. It howled and lunged straight for Zhang Yao. Though bold and clutching a wooden spear, Zhang Yao reacted too late. Shaken by witnessing Wang Ming's death, her hands trembled. She tried to jump back, stepped on loose timber, and lost her balance, crashing to the ground. Dodge! Chun Shi's eyes blazed with rage. She fought to push through the panicking crowd, yet terrified girls blocked her path. The wolf's powerful claw swept toward Zhang Yao's right leg. Cloth ripped. A terrible gash more than 10 centimeters long opened across her thigh, exposing raw flesh. Worse still, the inner thigh artery was sliced open. Blood gushed out rapidly, pooling across the floorboards. Zhang Yao screamed in agony, writhing on the blood-soaked floor. The wolf lowered its head over her defenseless body and opened its jaws to deliver the killing bite. Zhang Yao squeezed her eyes shut, tears spilling down her cheeks. Was this where she died? At the very instant the wolf's jaws were about to snap down onto her head, a sharp, furious shout boomed across the room. Beast! Die! Bursting through the chaotic crowd came Chun Shi. Eyes blazing, the girl trained in Sanda bit down hard against fear. Instead of fleeing, she charged forward. Driving off the floor, she twisted her hips and torso, channeling all her body weight into both hands gripping the sharpened wooden spear. She thrust forward with full force. The wolf sensed the incoming blow and tried to twist away, yet it was too late. The sharp tip drove straight into its left eye, would pierce through the eyeball and buried itself deep inside the wolf's skull. A gurgling, agonized howl tore from its throat. Its huge body thrashed violently. Chun Shi refused to let go, leaning all her weight onto the spear's shaft to pin the beast firmly to the floor. Hot wolf blood spurted over her face. Within seconds the wolf went still, lifeless. Chun Shi gasped heavily. Her hands shook violently. The rough wood had torn her skin open across her palms. The danger was far from over. The alpha wolf, which had been feeding on Wang Ming's body, lifted its head. Blood and fragments of flesh clung to its jaws. It growled menacingly and locked its glowing green eyes on Chun Shi. Abandoning its kill, it sprinted toward her. Chun Shi, get out of the way. Zhang Yao screamed desperately from the floor. Chun-Shi tried to yank her spear free, yet it was jammed fast inside the wolf's skull. Seeing fangs darting for her throat, she let go instantly and rolled hard to her right. The alpha wolf crashed onto the spot where she had stood, its claws gouging deep scratches into the planks. Mid-roll, Chun-Shi spotted another discarded wooden spear lying nearby. Snatching it up, she twisted at the waist as she rose and struck out in a sharp, powerful counter thrust. Target: the alpha wolf's soft underbelly. The alpha wolf had just landed, with no time to steady its posture. A sharp wooden spear struck like a venomous snake. Slish! The rough wood easily ripped open its soft belly and drove deep into its internal organs. Chun-Shi gritted her teeth hard, her hands clamped tight around the spear shaft. Following the wolf's forward momentum, she heaved upward with all her strength. Ow! The alpha wolf let out a despairing wail. A terrible gash over 20 centimeters long was torn across its abdomen. Scalding blood spilled across the ground together with glistening intestines. Its massive body crashed heavily into the pool of blood. Its limbs convulsed in agony. It tried to rise, but massive internal blood loss drained its life away. After only a few spasms, it went completely still. In less than a minute, the two vicious wolves that had burst into the house had been fought back and slain by Chun-Shi. Drawing on her basic street, fighting skill, and desperate ferocity. Clatter! The wooden spear slipped from her grasp. Chun-Shi could hold herself up no longer. Her legs buckled, and she dropped to her knees on the blood-soaked floor. Overcome by uncontrollable retching. The immediate danger had passed, yet overwhelming fear crashed over her. Every last ounce of strength had been sapped from her body. Silence fell over the hall, broken only by Chun-Shi's ragged gasps and the muffled sobs of the other girls. Yet everyone knew clearly that true despair waited outside. From the shattered gap in the wooden wall, hair-raising growls rose one after another. Beneath the moonlight, dozens of girls stared in horror. Out on the open ground beyond the breach, another 5 or 6 huge gray wolves paced back and forth. At the very front stood the enormous Wolf King, its emerald green eyes locked firmly on the interior of the building. It had seen the bodies of its 2 fallen pack mates and smelled the thick, heavy blood scent inside the house. Far from driving the pack away, the smell stoked their murderous fury. The Wolf King bent its forelegs slightly, a brutal rumble rolling up from its throat. The wolves behind it dropped low to the ground, ready to charge. 2 wolves had already inflicted such terrible harm. If these 5 or 6 burst inside together, every human here would be torn to shreds. It's over, we're going to die here. Lu Jia sank helplessly to the floor, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Others closed their eyes, awaiting death. At this critical, make-or-break moment, owl! From deep within the primeval forest far away, a shrill, desperate wolf howl exploded through the night. The sound carried far, sharp and piercing, heavy with terror, as though the beast had encountered something dreadfully fearsome and cried out in urgent appeal to its kin. And that direction was exactly where Lin Mo had gone toward the campsite. Hearing that howl, the Wolf King about to charge froze abruptly. Surprise flickered in its emerald eyes. Its pointed ears pricked straight upward, fixed firmly on the source of the sound. Owl! The distant howl rang out once more, faster this time, tinged with the cries of a dying beast. The Wolf King paced anxiously in circles, weighing its options. In the end, it gave the blood-stained room one long, heavy stare and lifted its head to let loose a long, commanding howl. At the Wolf King's signal, the pack surrounding the wooden house wheeled as one and flowed back into the dark forest like a receding tide. Within mere heartbeats, stillness returned outside the windows. Not even the breath of a beast could be heard. The wolves had withdrawn. Inside the hall, the girls stared blankly at the empty window opening, their minds numb, unable to believe what they had witnessed. Against all odds, they had survived this hopeless predicament. Yao Yao! Hold on, Yao Yao! Heart-rending cries shattered the hush. Xia Yuqing scrambled frantically across the blood-spattered floor and dropped to her knees beside Zhang Yao. Staring at the deep, bone-exposing gash on Zhang Yao's thigh from which blood gushed wildly, tears streamed down her face. Zhang Yao's skin was deathly pale, her lips tinged purple. Damage to a major artery had cost her a great deal of blood in barely 2 minutes. She drifted in and out of consciousness, her body shivering nonstop from plummeting body temperature. Yuqing, am I going to die? Zhang Yao opened her eyes weakly, her voice thin as thread. No, you are not going to die. I won't let you. Weeping, Xia Yuqing tore a large strip of fabric from her thin coat. She wrapped it tight high above Zhang Yao's wound and pressed hard against the artery with all her might to stem the bleeding. Someone, come help me. Save her. Hands slick with blood, Xia Yuqing shouted desperately toward those around her. Several girls who had regained some composure hurried over to hold pressure on the wound. One fetched what little fresh water remained to wash away excess blood. Another took off her jacket and draped it over Zhang Yao to keep her warm. The atmosphere inside the hall grew unbearably oppressive. Thick, iron-rich blood mixed with sharp, unpleasant odors hung heavy in the air. Not far away lay Wang Meng's lifeless body. Her throat had been torn completely open, half her neck mangled. Her unseeing eyes stared blankly toward the ceiling, mute testimony to the cruelty of the wilderness. Lu Yunyan sat barefooted huddled in a corner, her hair disheveled. Her gold-rimmed spectacles lay on the floor with a fresh crack across one lens. All her poised composure had vanished, replaced by raw terror. Her whole body shook like a leaf. Creak. In one corner of the hall, the door to an old wooden wardrobe was pushed carefully open from within. Su Qingya, covered in dust and cobwebs, poked her head out like a frightened rodent and climbed out. Once certain the wolves were truly gone, she heaved a long sigh of relief. She smoothed her messy hair and tried to look calm, attempting to conceal how she had hidden away in cowardice. Ahem, is everyone all right? She cleared her throat, trying to resume her air of natural leadership. Shut your mouth. Qin Shi, who had just caught her breath, spun around sharply. Bloodshot eyes locked hard onto Su Qingya, undisguised disgust written across her face. Su Qingya, how dare you speak? When the wolves burst in, you, our supposed mastermind strategist, cowered inside a wardrobe without making a sound. To save your own skin, you even shoved another girl to the ground. Chen Shi gestured toward the pools of blood and Wang Meng's body, her voice sharp with rage. If you had not insisted on driving Lin Mo away, the windows he had reinforced during the day would never have been smashed open so easily. None of this would have happened. People would not be dead. At the mention of Lin Mo's name, every girl in the hall flinched. It was true. While Lin Mo had been here, he had borne every heavy task alone. He had kept the farm well-ordered and made them feel safe. Yet swayed by groundless fears and Su Qingya's incitement, they had driven away the only man capable of protecting them. Now they reaped the bitter consequences of their own choices. Xia Yuqing kept pressing down hard on Zhang Yao's wound, her vision blurred by tears. She gazed out the broken window into the pitch-black forest, heavy regret filling her heart. If only she had stood firmer during the day and insisted Lin Mo could stay, would tonight's tragedy have unfolded differently? Lin Mo, where are you now? Are you still alive? 2.5 minutes earlier. 800 meters away from the wilderness farm, among rocky outcrops. Lin Mo sat cross-legged beside a campfire, turning a thick wooden skewer, holding a whole golden-brown roasted hare. Fat sizzled on the surface of the meat as heat hit it. Cumin and chili powder acquired from the system shop were sprinkled evenly over it. Rich, mouth-watering smoke drifted far out on the night breeze through the dark woods. Lin Mo tore off a large chunk of meat and bit into it, chewing heartily. His physique, boosted threefold, meant his digestive system was vastly more powerful. High-calorie food flooded through him, rapidly converting into surging physical strength, nourishing every muscle in his body. This ordinary street food delight, so commonplace in civilization, felt like the greatest luxury in this dangerous wilderness. Just as Lin Mo reached for the second rabbit leg, his chewing motion halted abruptly. The beast-like intuition granted by wilderness hunter sent sharp warning pricks across his senses. The forest, previously filled with wind sounds, fell unnaturally quiet. Even insects chirping in the grass fell completely silent, as though sensing some dreadful presence. Lin Mo set down the roasted hare. He narrowed his eyes and scanned coldly into the darkness ahead of the campsite. 5 pairs of eerie green eyes had appeared silently out there, floating above the ground. Greed, hunger, and cruelty shone within them, fixed firmly on Lin Mo and his roasted meat. Then a cold mechanical voice echoed inside his head. Ding. System detects approaching danger. Temporary mission triggered. Repel the wolf pack. Mission description. The aroma of roasting fat has drifted far across the cold night wind, drawing nearby predators. 5 hungry adult gray wolves have locked onto your position. Mission objective. Use camp defenses or your own strength to kill or drive away these 5 gray wolves. Mission reward. Survival points awarded according to number of wolves slain. Completion grants an additional mystery reward. The instant the notification finished, universal analysis activated automatically. Status panels for the 5 gray wolves unfolded across Lin Mo's field of vision. Target, Adult gray wolf times 5 body length, 1.8 to 2 meters weight, 60 to 80 kilograms. Bite force, extremely formidable, capable of crushing human bones easily. Weak points, flanks, eyes, throat. Reading the statistics on his system panel, instead of panic, Lin Mo's lips curled into a cold smirk. I was just thinking 80 survival points are far too little to spend. You have volunteered to come be my experience fodder. Lin Mo stood slowly, his right hand wrapping firmly around the heavy, tempered steel jungle machete. The cool grip of the handle settled comfortably in his palm, giving him absolute confidence. After the triple boost physique serum, his strength, speed, and neural reaction had broken ordinary human limits. Faced with these 5 regular gray wolves, even an adult Amur tiger would not make him hesitate to draw his blade and fight. Rustle, rustle. The 5 gray wolves stepped out of darkness, their gray-brown fur dusted with frost, thick strings of saliva dripping from their jaws. They did not leap to attack at once. Instead, they spread into a semicircle formation, advancing cautiously toward the campsite. Beast instinct warned them this 2-legged creature was nothing like their usual prey. Lin Mo stood beside the burning campfire, his gaze unervingly calm. Suddenly, he lifted his foot and delivered a powerful kick straight into the blazing fire. Boom! Burning logs scattered everywhere, sparks exploding through the air. Light over the campsite dimmed sharply. To the wolves, this looked like nothing more than panicky, desperate resistance from their prey. Ow! The leading wolf could no longer hold back its bloodlust. Pushing hard off its hind legs, its huge body shot forward like an arrow toward Lin Mo. The remaining 4 wolves charged close behind. Fool! Lin Mo gave a cold laugh. Instead of retreating, he stepped forward to meet them. His left hand found a thick vine left over from traps set during the day and pulled hard. Crack! Branches holding the trigger snapped cleanly. Boom! Earth-shaking crashes rang out. 200-pound boulders came crashing down from high above the rocky gully with devastating momentum. The 2 wolves charging at the very front did not even have time to yelp. They were crushed flat beneath the falling stones. Heavy, sickening crunch of bone and flesh echoed through the night air. Both great beasts were reduced to mangled corpses, blood and internal organs splattering outward and staining wide stretches of soil crimson. Ding! Successfully slain adult gray wolf times 2. Survival points plus 30. This sudden catastrophe brought the other 3 wolves skidding to a halt. Staring in horror at their slaughtered packmates, uneasy growls rumbled in their throats. Thoughts of retreat stirred within them. Lin Mo, however, would never let them run. Trying to leave now? Too late. Murder burned bright in Lin Mo's eyes. His triple-enhanced physical abilities exploded to their fullest. Muscles tensed in his legs. He surged forward like a tiger descending from mountains, charging straight into the remaining wolves. He moved far too fast. To the 3 wolves, Lin Mo blurred into a dark streak. Die! Lin Mo gripped the machete with both hands, twisting powerfully from his hips. The dark blade swept a cold half-moon arc through the air, slamming toward the nearest wolf. The wolf tried to block with its forepaw, yet against tempered steel and Lin Mo's overwhelming strength, its defense was as fragile as paper. Slish! Sharp blades sliced effortlessly through tough fur and severed cervical vertebrae. A massive wolf head flew into the air, and a fountain of blood spurted almost a meter high from the headless neck. Ding! Successfully slain adult gray wolf times 1. Survival points plus 15. 3 wolves dead within the blink of an eye. Lin Mo's fighting spirit soared to its peak. Enraged by the gory sight, the 4th wolf lunged sideways regardless, jaws gaping wide, aiming for Lin Mo's thigh. Get back! Without even looking, Lin Mo lashed out with his right leg like a steel whip. Thud! The blow landed solidly against the wolf's abdomen. A nauseating series of bone fractures sounded. The 80-kilogram wolf was sent flying, slamming hard against a tree 5 meters away. It fell to the ground whimpering, its spine shattered, unable to stand. Lin Mo strode forward and drove his machete into its heart without emotion, ending its suffering. Ding! Successfully slain adult gray wolf times 1. Survival points plus 15. Within less than 1 minute, 5 fierce adult wolves were slain and 1 gravely wounded. The last wolf was completely terror-stricken. Tucking its tail between its legs, it stared at Lin Mo, who looked like a god of slaughter. All will to fight vanished. It spun around and fled madly deep into the forest, howling a long, shrill, desperate cry summoning help as it ran. Ow! That long call, full of despair and plea for aid, carried far across the wilderness. Calling for backup, Lin Mo's gaze turned icy. He pushed hard off the ground and darted forward like a cheetah. He outpaced the terrified, fleeing wolf. After barely a dozen meters, he closed the gap, muscles bulging in his right arm. He hurled his heavy machete like a javelin. Squelch! The sharp blade pierced cleanly through the wolf's hind leg, pinning it firmly to the ground. Lin Mo walked over, pulled free his blade, and slit its throat with one clean motion. Ding! Successfully slain adult gray wolf ×1. Survival points plus 15. Done. Lin Mo flicked wolf blood off his blade and bent down, ready to store all 5 wolf carcasses inside system storage. Yet the moment his fingers were about to touch the bodies, every hair on his body stood straight on end. A sense of mortal danger, tenfold stronger than before, crashed down upon him. Rustle, rustle. Dense rustling of shifting leaves rose from surrounding shrubbery. Lin Mo snapped his head up and scanned his surroundings. By faint moonlight, he saw 8 huge, powerfully built wolves emerge from darkness around the campsite. Each of these wolves was noticeably larger than the previous 5. Every one exceeded 2 meters in length. Cunning and cruelty glinted in their eyes. They were the elite wolf pack drawn by the dying wolf's distress howl and the heavy scent of fresh blood, exactly the same group that had attacked the wooden farmhouse. 8 great wolves sealed every escape route around Lin Mo's campsite, forming an inescapable encirclement. Night wind stirred the hair falling over Lin Mo's forehead. Standing amid pools of blood, he slowly tightened his grip around his blood-stained machete. Faced with this hopeless-seeming situation, Lin Mo felt no trace of fear. Instead, fierce hunting fervor ignited deep inside him. Come then, beasts. Tonight, we fight to the death. Rustle, rustle. The 8 massive elite wolves did not leap to attack right away. Heavy, menacing steps steadily narrowed the encirclement. Faced with a scenario that would break any ordinary human, Lin Mo's mind stayed ice cold. Perfect. Far from shrinking back, a cold smile tugged at his lips. Blood surged in his triple-boosted body, and fierce battle fervor burned in his chest. Lin Mo did not stand still waiting to be swarmed. Eyes narrowed, he stepped backward deeper inside the rocky funnel-shaped hollow. Smooth steep rock walls rose on both sides. Further inward the space narrowed. At most 2 wolves could advance side by side. Lin Mo well understood that even with superhuman strength, fighting 8 elite wolves in open ground would get him torn apart. Terrain was his greatest advantage. Ow! The Wolf King with a patch of white fur on its forehead sensed exactly what Lin Mo intended. It would not allow its prey to gain favorable ground. It let loose a furious battle cry. All 8 elite wolves surged forward like streaks of dusty brown lightning, carrying the stench of wild beasts as they rushed to kill. The 2 fastest wolves sprinted in front, jaws open wide, aiming for Lin Mo's throat and thigh. A split second before fangs sank home, Lin Mo slid sharply sideways against the stone wall, shifting half a meter along rock. Thud! The 2 charging wolves overshot their mark and landed where Lin Mo had stood moments before. Before they could turn, the leaf-strewn earth beneath their paws gave way without warning. Squelch! Squelch! Muffled wet impacts rang out. Both huge beasts let out piercing screams. It was the spike pit trap Lin Mo had dug carefully while preparing the campsite during daytime. Dozens of hardened thick wooden stakes jutted upward from the pit floor. Massive momentum drove the wolves straight down onto them. Hardwood pierced their soft bellies and internal organs. Some stakes even punched all the way through to stick out from their backs, pinning them motionless like meat on skewers. Blood gushed in fountains, dyeing surrounding soil bright crimson. 2 down. Lin Mo's expression stayed cold. Without pausing, he gripped his machete tight, pushed hard off the stone wall, and lunged forward straight into the following wolves. Die! Lin Mo roared. His blade sliced a gleaming half-moon arc through air with a sharp whistling sound, hacking toward the 3rd wolf's face. The wolf had no time to dodge and twisted its head at the very last instant. Slish! The sharp-tempered steel blade cut away half its skull as though slicing soft cheese. Brain, matter, and dark blood splattered across solid rock. Ding! Successfully slain elite gray wolf ×1. Survival points plus 30. System notifications sounded inside his head, yet Lin Mo paid them no mind. The 4th and 5th wolves closed in, attacking left and right at once. The wolf on his left snapped toward his wrist, hoping to disarm him. The wolf on his right bared fangs, aiming for his midsection. Get out of my way. Lin Mo twisted sharply at the hips, pouring all his triple, amplified power into a brutal side kick. It crashed like a cannonball straight into the left side wolf's rib cage. Crack! The nearly 200-pound elite wolf was hurled sideways, smashing against rock. Its chest caved completely in, and it died instantly. Meanwhile, Lin Mo twisted his right wrist and drove the broadsword downward with all his strength. Squelch. The blade stabbed precisely into the back of neck of the gray wolf on his right, piercing straight through the gap between its vertebrae and pinning it firmly to the ground. In less than 20 seconds, 5 out of 8 elite wolves lay dead. Thick blood reek filled the rocky hollow. The 3 surviving wolves finally felt terror. They skidded to a halt mid-charge, letting out frightened whimpering deep in their throats. Yet the white, furred alpha wolf, though terrified, had been driven wild with rage by its packmate's slaughter. Ayo! The alpha let out a deafening howl. Pushing hard off its hind legs, its massive body leaped more than 2 meters into the air and pounced down like a collapsing mountain. It moved so fast it sent a sharp whistling sound cutting through the air. Lin Mo's pupils shrank sharply. He had just pulled his broadsword free from the ground. His old strength was spent, and he had yet to build new momentum. He could not fully dodge. At this life and death moment, he twisted his torso violently and held the broadsword horizontally across his chest to block. Clang! The wolf's steel, hard claws crashed against the blade, ringing with metal noise. Terrifying force surged down the hilt, numbing Lin Mo's palms. He stumbled backward 3 or 4 steps and crashed hard against a rock. As he recoiled, the alpha's sharp right paw raked across the edge of his blade and tore into Lin Mo's left arm. Rip! His thin outer shirt shredded open. 3 deep, bone, exposing gashes gaped in his flesh. Skin rolled back, and hot blood welled at once, dripping down his arm. Agony shot through him like electric current. Yet Lin Mo did not so much as frown. You beast, you asked for this. Far from making him retreat, the injury ignited the ferocity buried deep inside him. Pushing off the rock at his back, he drove his right foot hard against the ground. Instead of falling back, he charged straight toward the alpha wolf the instant it landed. Gripping the hilt tightly with both hands, he tensed his core muscles like a drawn bow. He channeled every ounce of his strength into one single upward slash. The strike was lightning, fast and unstoppable. The alpha had only just touched the ground and could not evade the fatal blow. Squelch! The dark blade bit into the soft skin beneath its jaw. It sliced effortlessly through tough flesh, severed its esophagus and windpipe, and split open its thick skull. Blood sprayed out like water from a high-pressure hose, drenching Lin Mo head to toe. The alpha's huge body stiffened abruptly before crashing heavily to the earth. Its emerald eyes still held a flicker of stunned disbelief. Ding! You have slain an elite alpha wolf. Survival points plus 50. With their leader dead, the last 2 elite wolves completely broke. Not daring to glance at Lin Mo, they tucked their tails and fled desperately toward the dark depths of the forest. You came here, don't even think about running away. Lin Mo snorted. He bent down and picked up 2 fist-sized sharp stones. His 3 times enhanced arm strength showed its full power. He whirled and hurled the stones like bullets. Whoosh! Whoosh! Thud! Thud! Both stones smashed squarely into the backs of the fleeing wolves' skulls. The brutal impact caved their heads in. Without even a yelp, the wolves collapsed and rolled more than 10 meters across the ground, motionless. In less than 2 minutes, this heart-stopping battle was over. All 8 elite gray wolves, powerful enough to massacre a small settlement, lay dead. Lin Mo stood amid wolf carcasses and pools of blood, gasping for breath. The all-out fight had drained him. His left arm continued to bleed, sending waves of searing pain through his body. Yet his eyes burned bright. Right then, system notifications exploded inside his mind. Ding! You have slain times 7 elite gray wolves. Survival points plus 210. Ding! You have slain times 1 elite alpha wolf. Survival points plus 50. Ding! Having wiped out an elite wolf pack in a short time, you have unlocked the hidden achievement Feast of Slaughter. Bonus survival points plus 130. Total survival points earned in this battle, 390. Current total survival points, 450. Ding! Cumulative survival points have met the upgrade threshold. System evolution commencing. Congratulations! The Divine Survival System has risen to Level 2. Calculating upgrade rewards. 1. System function upgrade. Basic analysis has advanced to intermediate. Scanning radius expands to 500 meters. You may analyze targets for deep-seated weaknesses, hidden attributes, and minute changes to the surrounding environment. 2. Storage space expanded. 5 cubic meters, 20 cubic meters. Time stands absolutely still within storage. Stored items never spoil. Shop access updated. Level 1 basic supply shop upgraded to Level 2 shop. The medical shop and blueprint shop tabs are now unlocked. 4. Ding! Exclusive level, 2 promotion reward issued, times 1 minor healing potion, times 1 slight constitution enhancement potion. Listening to the flood of mechanical alerts, Lin Mo's lips spread into a broad, triumphant grin. He let out a low, hearty laugh. Ha ha. The system leveled up, and 2 new shop sections are unlocked. Yes. With a thought, he opened his system inventory. A glass vial glowing pale green rested in the first slot. Minor healing potion, life essence refined with advanced extraordinary technology. Drinking it rapidly repairs bodily wounds and accelerates cell regeneration. Highly effective for stabilizing critical injuries. Without hesitation, Lin Mo summoned the vial, bit off its stopper, and drank down the pale, green liquid in one gulp. It tasted faintly sweet. Once swallowed, it turned into a cool current that coursed through his bloodstream, flooding every part of his body. Before converging heavily on the gashes on his left arm, a miracle unfolded. Bleeding from those deep, bone-exposing wounds stopped instantly. Torn skin began to knit itself together, fresh granulation tissue weaving across the lacerations. In barely 30 seconds, the life-threatening wounds formed solid scabs. The scabs fell away, revealing smooth, unmarked skin underneath. Not a single scar remained. Moreover, all physical exhaustion from the fight vanished. He felt reborn, in peak condition. This potion practically gives me a second life. Lin Mo clenched his fully healed left fist. Surging power coursed through him, filling him with confidence. With a level 2 system and access to the medical shop, he now possessed real confidence to survive and move freely across this dangerous wilderness. The crisis had passed. Now came the harvest. Broadsword in hand, Lin Mo walked over to the wolf corpses. Boosted by his wilderness hunter skill, he moved with the practiced skill of a veteran hunter. He slid his blade under each wolf's jaw and cut down its belly, slicing cleanly between skin and muscle. Rip, rip, one after another, complete, thick gray wolf pelts peeled free, heavy with rank metallic odor. 13 pelts in total. He carried them to clean snow just outside his camp. Using snow and dry grass, he washed away surface bloodstains, then hung each pelt with vines on wooden racks outside his shelter to dry. These pelts made outstanding cold, weather gear and valuable resources for trade or crafting later on. From the wolf carcasses, he selected only the fattest hindquarters and tenderloin from the alpha and several elite wolves. He cut the meat and stored it inside his expanded 20 cubic meter storage space, where it would stay perfectly preserved. All remaining innards and scraps of meat were dumped hundreds of meters downwind from his camp. The strong scent of carrion would draw other roaming predators away, keeping his campsite safe. By the time he finished, night had grown very deep. Lin Mo returned to his solid, warm shelter. He laid down a thick bed of dry moss and topped it with 3 or 4 of the softest wolf pelts to make a lavish wolf skin bed. Outside the shelter, a bonfire blazed, beating back the chill. Lying comfortably on his wolf skin bed with his hands behind his head, he listened to the howling wind and slowly closed his eyes. Day 1. Perfect. I wonder how those young women fared tonight. Did the wolf pack find them? If they did, they must have been terrified out of their wits. 800 meters away stood the run-down wilderness farm. The great hall of the crumbling wooden house had turned into a scene of carnage. Thick iron, rich blood stench mixed with the smell of fear. Sweat hung heavy in the drafty room. Wang Ming's body lay on the floor near the broken window. Her throat had been torn completely open. Half her neck was mangled. Her unblinking, lifeless eyes stared blankly toward the ceiling as if silently condemning the massacre. A short distance away in a pool of blood, Zhang Yao lay deathly pale. Though Xia Yuqing had tightly bound her torn femoral artery with strips of cloth, massive blood loss had left her semi-conscious, racked with spasms. More than 30 remaining girls huddled deep in the far corner of the hall, shaking violently, their teeth chattering. Chen Shi's sharp rebuke stung Su Qingya like a resounding slap. Though the other girls dared not speak so openly, their stares carried undisguised revulsion. Su Qingya's cheeks burned. She knew her cowardice while hiding inside a closet had shattered her image as the group's leader. Unless she quickly shifted everyone's anger onto someone else, her standing within the group would collapse. She might even be cast out by these panic-stricken young women. Driven by overwhelming fear, malice surfaced inside her. She took a deep breath, her eyes turning cold and venomous. Ignoring Chen Shi entirely, she whirled and pointed toward the shattered west side window and the collapsed outer fence. Chen Shi, don't falsely accuse me. Su Qingya raised her voice. Her shrill tone echoed sharply through the hall. Has no one here used their brain? Why could the wolves break in so easily? Why tonight of all nights? She played the aggrieved victim and spoke in a loud, impassioned voice. Who was tasked with repairing this window and the outer fence during the day? Lin Mo? That young man. He deliberately failed to nail the planks tight. He left gaps in the fence on purpose. He already knew wolves roamed these woods. Perhaps he hoped to play the hero, or intended for a wolf attack to break our spirits so we would become completely reliant on him. That is why he left those dangerous flaws behind. It was his selfish scheming that let the wolves break through. Her twisted, false reasoning exploded through the hall like a bomb. Standing on a false moral high ground, she grew so caught up in her own speech. She almost believed her own lies. Think about it. If he had properly secured the window, could a wolf smash it open with one paw? If he had built a solid fence, could wolves creep right up to these walls unseen? Everything is Lin Mo's wicked plot. He caused Wang Meng's death. He left Zhang Ma gravely injured. Why do you not direct your anger at the true culprit instead of blaming me when I try my hardest for all of us? Her shameless sophistry proved devastatingly effective. Fresh from mortal terror and lacking firm resolve, the girls craved an outlet for their fear and rage. To admit they had driven Lin Mo away through irrational suspicion, leaving their farm defenseless, meant confronting crushing guilt they could not bear. Blaming the absent man and painting him as a villain felt far easier psychologically. You're absolutely right. Li Mingyao, who had fainted under the table from terror earlier, had woken. She scrambled over towards Su Qingya and clung to her like a lifeline, shouting in agreement. Lin Mo is to blame. That young man has terrible intentions. He coveted our safety and trust all along. It makes perfect sense he sabotaged doors and fences, planning to step forward as our savior once danger struck. Tonight's tragedy happened solely because Lin Mo failed to reinforce our defenses properly. Wang Ming died because of him. He is utterly reprehensible. Once Li Mingyao spoke up, girls who had previously harbored doubts about Su Qingya joined in. Yes, how malicious can Lin Mo be? Terrible. Who knew he harbored such deep-laid schemes against us these past 2 days? He deserves whatever misfortune comes his way. We gave him shelter, yet he would happily let us be killed by wolves. What a cold-hearted, selfish man. The hall filled with wave after wave of vicious condemnation directed at Lin Mo, the man who had labored selflessly for them only days before. How can you all be so unreasonable? Xia Yuqing, who had knelt pressing cloth against Zhang Yao's wound, trembled all over with rage upon hearing these slanderous falsehoods. She lifted her head, eyes red, and stared straight at Su Qingya. Tears welled in her eyes. What were you all doing while Lin Mo repaired the fence and nailed planks over the windows during the day? You stood by watching and mocking him. If not for him, this shack could barely keep out the wind. You drove him away, and now disaster strikes, and you put all the blame on him. Su Qingya, you hid inside a closet and did nothing. What right do you have to condemn Lin Mo? Overcome by emotion, Xia Yuqing let go of the wound and lunged forward, intending to expose Su Qingya's hypocrisy. Yuqing, don't do anything rash. At once, Chen Shi and Lu Jia grabbed her and held her tight. Let go of me. I will expose this hypocrite. Xia Yuqing struggled violently. Calm down. Chen Shi held her firmly by the shoulders and lowered her voice heavy with helpless anxiety. Arguing with people caught up in mass hysteria achieves nothing. They will not listen. Look at Zhang Yao. At the mention of Zhang Yao, Xia Yuqing froze. She turned toward her injured friend lying in pools of blood. Zhang Yao's pale skin had flushed an unnatural fever, red. Severe blood loss combined with bacterial contamination of her open wound had sent her temperature soaring. Sweat dotted her forehead, and her body shook with constant spasms. Yuqing, Zhang Yao forced her eyes open. Her blood-stained cold hand grasped the hem of Xia Yuqing's shirt weakly. She shook her head. Her bloodshot eyes held a sober, hopeless understanding of reality. Do not provoke them. Her voice was faint, barely audible. We are in a vulnerable position right now. If we are cast outside, we will surely die. Zhang Yao understood perfectly. Su Qingya had regained control over the group. If Xia Yuqing enraged everyone, Su Qingya would seize the chance to drive all 3 of them out of the farmhouse. Defenseless outside in the dark wilderness teeming with wild beasts meant certain death. Hearing Zhang Yao's desperate plea and seeing her horrific injury, Xia Yuqing's heart felt squeezed tight. Sorrow, fury, and helplessness welled inside her, almost suffocating her. Fine. I will not. I will not. She squeezed Zhang Yao's icy hand. Tears spilled down and splattered onto the dusty floor. She bit her lip hard and swallowed her burning anger. Within this fractured all-female survivor group, reason carried no weight. Survival came first. Standing amid the crowd, Su Qingyao watched Xia Yuqing held back, forced to swallow her anger. A cold, triumphant smile tugged at her lips. She knew she had weathered this crisis. Enough, everyone. Quiet down. As tensions eased following Xia Yuqing's capitulation, Lu Yunyan, who had cowered unnoticed in a corner, sensed an opportunity. She rose from the dusty floor and smoothed her disheveled hair. One lens of her gold-rimmed spectacles was cracked, yet she reassumed her authoritative demeanor. The immediate danger has passed, but we cannot afford to be careless. She surveyed the room with feigned composure. When her gaze swept over Wang Meng's mangled corpse, revulsion flickered across her face before she quickly looked away. Chen Shi, Lu Jia, look after Zhang Yao. Use damp cloths to bring her fever down. As for Wang Meng's body, Qingya, select a few brave-hearted girls. Bury her on the hillside first thing tomorrow morning. Leaving a corpse indoors will fuel panic. Her instructions sounded orderly on the surface, yet she skillfully avoided addressing the core conflict while cementing both her own and Su Qingya's leadership. Once the sharp panic faded, everyone's eyes drifted toward the two large wolf corpses on the floor. An odd silence descended across the hall. The after-effects of terror and surging adrenaline gave way to overwhelming gnawing hunger. Gurgle. Someone's stomach rumbled loudly in the stillness. That sound broke the last restraint. Unbearable hunger washed over every girl. During the day, they had only received a handful of sour wild berries. That evening, the large fish they had caught had been eaten entirely by Su Qingya's inner circle. More than 30 girls suffered sharp hunger pangs. Eyes glinting with desperate longing fixed themselves on the wolf carcasses. Can we eat wolf meat? One girl swallowed hard, her voice trembling with greed. We cannot. Chen Shi's expression hardened, and she stepped forward at once to object firmly. Absolutely not. She frowned and pointed toward the wolf bodies lying in blood. Wild animal meat carries countless parasites and dangerous bacteria. Without thorough, complete cooking, eating it will lead to severe infection. We do not have the means to cook wolf meat thoroughly right now. The wolves may well return. No one dares guarantee they will not strike again. This cabin is drafty all around. If we start a fire to roast meat right now, the potent stench of blood mixed with grilled flesh will act like a beacon, drawing every wild beast for miles around. Do you all wish to get yourselves killed? Chen Shi's warning was logical and razor-sharp. Within civilized society, everyone would unquestionably heed her words. But trapped inside this wilderness cabin, tormented by starvation verging on madness, rationality had long been cast aside entirely. Chen Shi, quit spreading unnecessary panic. Li Mengyao was the first to lash out. Though she had been thoroughly terrified moments earlier, the sight of meat reignited her domineering attitude. You may not be starving, but we are on the brink of death from hunger. The wolves are already dead, so what stops us from eating their flesh? Are you determined to let us starve to death? Exactly. Don't speak so casually when you have no hardship to bear. Chen Shi, we're driven half insane by hunger. We'll risk whatever parasites lurk in the meat just to fill our stomachs. Light the fire at once. We need that meat. The group of girls had completely lost their senses, their eyes bloodshot with hunger, deaf to all persuasion. Led by Su Qingya and Li Mengyao, several girls brushed past Chen Shi's attempts to block them. They retrieved leftover firewood stacked in the corner and lit a blazing bonfire in the center of the cabin hall. Flickering flames cast eerie reflections across their greedy, frenzied faces. Too impatient even to skin the wolf carcasses properly, they hacked savagely at the bloody bodies using a rusted pocket knife and sharp stone shards. A tearing sound echoed through the room as a large chunk of wolf meat, still coated in fur and dripping dark red blood, was sliced free. No washing, no seasonings of any kind. They skewered the raw flesh onto rough tree branches and hastily held the chunks over the open flames to cook. Fat sizzled loudly under the scorching heat. A sickening blend of fresh blood, singed fur, and roasted meat quickly saturated the enclosed hall. A scent that would normally trigger violent nausea now tasted like the finest delicacy to these starving young women. Barely 10 minutes passed. The wolf meat was only charred black on the surface, its interior still oozing bright red raw blood. Yet the group could wait no longer. It's cooked. Time to eat. The moment for dividing the meat arrived. Asserting her self-proclaimed role as the group's leader, Su Qingya seized full control without hesitation. Using the knife, she carved the meatiest, firmest hindquarters from both wolf corpses and placed them into a relatively clean broken wooden basin for herself, Li Mengyao, and her closest circle of friends. This meat is incredible. Li Mengyao tore off a huge mouthful of undercooked flesh and chewed greedily. warm blood streaming down her chin in a grotesque display. Su Qingyao was equally uncouth as she gnawed at the wolf leg. She faced the other girls watching longingly and spoke with unmitigated arrogance. What are you staring at? I'm the core leader of this group. I exhausted massive mental energy fending off the wolf pack and exposing Lin Mo's schemes last night. I need the choicest meat to replenish my strength so I can lead all of us to survive tomorrow. This is thinking for the greater good. Her shameless remarks set a new low for morality. The other girls, however, were far too weak from hunger to argue back. Swarming toward the leftover wolf remains like scavenging hyenas. They scrambled violently for charred scraps tainted with fragments of internal organs. Two girls who had once been close friends even came to blows over a slightly larger piece of meat, yanking each other's hair and rolling across the dusty, blood-soaked floor. Those who managed to grab meat stuffed the hot flesh into their mouths without pause, chewing wildly with blood coating their lips just like primitive humans surviving on raw game. A brutal, ugly feast born of hunger unfolded in the center of the hall. A stark scene of despair unfolded in the shadowed far corner of the room. Zhang Yao's physical condition was deteriorating rapidly before everyone's eyes. Struck by a wolf's claw that sliced open her major artery, her wound sat exposed to filthy surroundings with no antibiotics or antiseptic available in the wilderness. Severe inflammation and festering were inevitable outcomes. Zhang Yao's body temperature had spiked above 39 degrees Celsius. Her skin burned hot as a furnace, yet violent chills racked her frame uncontrollably. The deep, bone-deep gash on her right leg was swollen and pale along the wound edges, with a foul putrid odor seeping from the infected tissue. Lin Mo, don't leave. Water, I need water. Trapped in a semi-conscious haze, Zhang Yao mumbled incoherent delirium through cracked, parched lips. In her agony and hopelessness, the person she subconsciously called out for was the man they had collectively driven away. Xia Yuqing knelt beside her, having shed every last tear she had. She tore strips from her clean undergarment, dampened the cloth with cold well water collected the previous day, and pressed it repeatedly to Zhang Yao's blazing forehead in a futile attempt to bring her fever down. Her efforts amounted to nothing more than a drop in the bucket. Without antibiotics, systemic infection from the wound would progress to fatal sepsis, beyond any form of rescue. Hang in there. Yao Yao, please hold on. Xia Yuqing clutched Zhang Yao's burning hand tightly, her voice reduced to a ragged whisper. She turned toward the bonfire and watched the rest of the group fighting over half-raw wolf meat, their faces smeared with blood. Su Qingyao's shamelessness, Li Mengyao's malice, Lu Yunyan's hypocrisy, alongside the selfishness and madness filling every person present, filled Xia Yuqing with bone-deep sorrow. This all-female group was doomed. They were no different from worms dragging one another down into the mire, destined to sink together into the abyss of death. Xia Yuqing looked away and gazed out the cabin's broken window toward the pitch-black primeval forest, cold wind howling through the trees. Lin Mo, she whispered silently in her heart, overwhelmed with remorse and hopelessness. Where on earth are you right now? Morning sunlight streamed into the cabin hall. Thick, cloying blood stench mingled with urine reek. Charred residue and rotten odors left over from the previous night's savage feast fermented thickly within the drafty walls. The air grew so murky that every breath churned the stomach violently. Several girls who had eaten the undercooked wolf meat lay weakly on the floor in the hall's corners, clutching their stomachs and crying out in agony. Wild wolf flesh naturally teemed with unknown parasites and bacteria, compounded by insufficient cooking. Acute gastroenteritis and food poisoning had fully set in, leaving their already weakened bodies even more devastated by relentless vomiting and diarrhea. A suffocating cloud of despair hung heavy over the entire cabin. Su Qingya pinched her nose shut with a relatively clean strip of cloth and stood beside a support pillar as far from the sick girls as possible. Her smudged eye makeup accentuated the disgust and irritation etched across her features. Stop standing around uselessly. Drag Wang Ming's corpse outside and bury it immediately. Do you want rotting flesh drawing swarms of flies indoors? Her shrill voice cut through the silence, sharp and unfeeling toward the deceased girl, marked only by revulsion. Qingya is right. Li Mingyao echoed her domineering tone instantly, lording authority over the others. The rest of you head to the backyard, dig a grave and dispose of the body. What terrible luck we have to deal with such an unpleasant chore first thing in the morning. The targeted girls' eyes reddened with distress. Though they burned with resentment, they dared not defy Su Qingya's bullying power. Fighting back fear and nausea, they fetched broken wooden planks and nervously carried Wang Ming's mangled body, her throat brutally torn open by wolf fangs, out of the cabin. While chaos consumed the interior, Chunshi slipped quietly out the main door alone and walked toward the open ground surrounding the abandoned farm. Having trained in Sanda for years and possessing far stronger mental fortitude than the others, she knew the wolf pack's sudden retreat the night before was deeply abnormal. The alpha wolf had already signaled a full charge that would have torn every person inside the cabin to shreds. Yet a distant, piercing wolf howl had abruptly recalled the entire pack at the critical moment. What force could drive bloodthirsty, starving wolves to abandon an easy meal and flee in evident terror? Frowning deeply, Chunshi gripped her wooden spear caked with dried wolf blood and knelt beside the collapsed fence breach. Wolf paw prints churned the ground into a chaotic mess, yet she spotted several unusual markings amid the wreckage. The footprints sink deep into the soil with uneven strides, all heading in a single direction in frantic flight. Chunshi followed the trail left by the fleeing wolves toward the forest boundary, a cold dread mounting within her step by step. 400 meters from the farm, she froze mid-step upon reaching a thick cluster of bushes. Her pupils contracted sharply as she stared at the ground ahead. A massive pool of dark red blood splattered across the dirt in a terrifying pattern, viscous chunks of flesh and internal organs clinging to the leaves of nearby half-meter-tall shrubs. The volume of blood here is far more than what a bite wound could produce. This creature eviscerated the wolves in an instant, crushing their internal organs with sheer brute strength. Chunshi gasped sharply as her heart hammered violently in her chest. Pushing past her terror, she tracked the blood trail dozens of meters onward, discovering 3 more sites marked by gruesome splattered blood and clear drag marks. Not a single wolf corpse remained anywhere to be seen. An icy chill raced up her spine to the crown of her head, every hair standing rigidly on end. Some terrifying unknown entity was systematically slaughtering the wolf pack last night. Chunshi mentally reconstructed the horrific scene from the previous evening. The fierce elite wolves had no means of resisting the mysterious presence, struck down instantly with their bodies dragged away as trophies. What kind of monstrous beast lurked out there? A larger mutated predator? Or some unknown abomination native to these wild lands? Daring not to speculate further, Chunshi sprinted back toward the cabin as if fleeing for her life. The cabin door slammed open as she stumbled inside, gasping heavily with a face drained of all color. "You nearly broke the door, charging in like a maniac," Su Qingyao complained sharply. Ignoring her completely, Chunshi rushed straight to Lu Yunyan and recounted every trace and sign she had discovered outside in a hurried, lowered voice. "What?" Lu Yunyan's poised complexion blanched instantly, her eyes widening behind her wire-rimmed glasses. "The wolves were hunted down one-sidedly, with all their bodies dragged away? Are you absolutely certain you saw this correctly?" Her voice warbled with overwhelming fright. Though Chunshi spoke quietly, her words echoed clearly across the silent hall, plunging the already fragile group deeper into overwhelming despair. "A monster, something far deadlier than wolves, roams outside. We're going to die. All of us will perish out here." Panic spread through the crowd like an infectious disease. Lu Yunyan pressed her lips tightly together while her mind raced rapidly. Her gaze drifted to Zhang Yao huddled in the corner. Zhang Yao's condition had deteriorated to a critical state. Her skin burned hot as a branding iron, her lips cracked and bleeding, and her deep leg wound festered fully. The surrounding flesh had turned an unsettling dark purple-black, emitting a thick, putrid stench. Xia Yuqing knelt beside her with swollen, tear-filled eyes, clutching Zhang Yao's cold hand so tightly her knuckles whitened, unable to make a sound through her endless weeping. "Zhang Yao won't make it past noon without anti-inflammatory medicine and clean nourishment," Lu Jia murmured through tears, overcome with hopelessness. Lu Yunyan drew a deep breath, knowing passive waiting meant certain death. Their food reserves were completely exhausted. While the well provided water, starvation would eventually claim everyone without sustenance. If Zhang Yao passed away inside the cabin, the psychological weight of decay would shatter the group's last remaining resolve. Worse still, that unknown terrifying entity lingered beyond the farm perimeter. Staying within the cabin walls offered no path to survival. "Everyone, quiet down at once." Lu Yunyan stood abruptly, projecting the authoritative bearing of their supervising teacher to silence the crying girls. "What good does weeping do? Can tears slay wolves or conjure food from thin air?" She pushed her glasses higher on her nose, her gaze sharp enough to cut as it swept over the room before settling on Su Qingyao and her companions. "The farm is no longer safe. Our food is gone, and Zhang Yao's life hangs by a thread. We must venture out actively to gather medicinal herbs for infection treatment and search for food supplies. Dead silence fell across the hall after her declaration. Step outside. Venture into the primeval forest teeming with wolves and an unknown monster? It was nothing short of marching towards certain death. Lu teacher, have you lost your mind? Su Qingya shot to her feet, shrieking as if burned. Wild beasts fill the outdoors. We have only crude weapons. Leaving this cabin is suicide. I refuse to go under any circumstances. You have no choice. Lu Yunyan's expression hardened, her tone ice cold. Will you choose to starve slowly within these walls, or wait for that monster to break in and devour us all tonight? As your supervising teacher, I am issuing an official order. A search party will depart immediately. Su Qingya, Li Mingyao, Xia Yuqing, Chen Shi, Lu Jia, Zhao Shui, and Wang Qian, grab your weapons and follow me. Apart from Chen Shi and Xia Yuqing, every named girl paled in terror and shook their heads frantically in refusal. Why must I go? Su Qingya roared indignantly. My role is intellectual coordination for the group. I should stay here to manage overall arrangements. Send the other less prominent members instead. Your empty coordination is worthless. Chen Shi finally lost all patience. She strode forward abruptly, grabbed Su Qingya by the collar and lifted her off the ground, pressing the tip of her wooden spear against Su Qingya's nose. Stop complaining. Xia Yuqing gave her friends a faint reassuring smile. They want to see us fail. We will not give them that satisfaction. We can carry smaller amounts and make more trips. I've endured your behavior long enough. You claimed you would sacrifice yourself for the collective good yesterday. Now the moment for that sacrifice has arrived. Chen Shi's eyes blazed red with barely restrained hostility. If you utter another refusal, I will stab you right here and leave your body outside as bait for the wild animals. Are you going? Stinging cold pressure from the spear tip paired with Chen Shi's murderous glare sent violent tremors through Su Qingya's body, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I'll go. Just stop threatening me. She swallowed her bitter resentment and agreed with wobbly legs. Seeing her leader surrender, Li Mingyao dared not voice any protest and glumly picked up her wooden spear. Xia Yuqing stood without hesitation. She would brave hell itself if it meant securing treatment to save Zhang Yao. 10 minutes later, a makeshift 7-girl search team led by Lu Yunyan gripped their crude wooden spears and stepped nervously out of the farm gate consumed with dread. Marching at the front, Chen Shi gestured toward the large bloodstain on the ground and spoke in a low voice. We follow this blood trail. Whatever creature massacred the wolf pack may have leftover prey or medicinal plants near its lair. This is our only viable lead. Lu Yunyan swallowed nervously and nodded in agreement. The 8 women huddled close together like frightened birds, following the broken drag marks deep into the shadowy, dense primeval woodland. Sunlight barely penetrated the thick, overlapping canopies of towering trees, plunging the forest into perpetual dimness. The air hung thick with the damp rot of fallen leaves mixed with faint traces of blood. Dry twigs crunched loudly underfoot with every step, each small rustle sending the jumpy group into fits of alarm. Lu teacher, let's head back. This place is absolutely terrifying. Li Mingyao trudged along mid-column with leaden legs, tears welling in her eyes. Her clothes still carried the foul odor of her prior fright, yet no one had the energy to criticize her in the current crisis. Be quiet. Do you wish to draw predators toward us? Lu Yunyan snapped in a hushed tone, though her own hands trembled uncontrollably around her wooden staff. Walking beside Li Mingyao, Su Qingya's face remained ashen as she muttered constant complaints under her breath. This is all Lin Mo's fault. If he hadn't abandoned us at this farm, we would never be trapped in this nightmare. If I make it back alive, my father will make him pay dearly for this. She redirected all her fear and frustration toward Lin Mo without any logical basis, using misplaced anger to mask her own cowardice. Chen Shi paid no mind to the complaints echoing behind her, fully focused on tracking the intermittent blood drag marks on the ground. The trail held both wolf blood alongside fragments of fur and internal tissue. The deeper they traveled, the heavier her heart sank. Whatever entity could drag a 100-kilogram timber wolf across rough terrain as easily as a discarded carcass possessed terrifying superhuman strength. The group trekked roughly 800 meters through tangled thorn bushes, sharp branches tearing open shallow gashes across their skin. Severe mental strain paired with starvation had nearly drained every last ounce of their physical stamina. Just as everyone neared the breaking point, ready to abandon their mission entirely, a soft breeze drifted through the trees toward their faces. This wind carried no decaying leaf odor or sickening blood reek. Instead, it brought a rich, overwhelming aroma of grilled meat seasoned with cumin. Every stomach rumbled audibly as the scent washed over them, triggering a tidal wave of ravenous hunger. Saliva flooded their mouths uncontrollably as their gazes locked forward in stunned fixation. Meat. Someone is roasting meat. Li Mingyao's fear vanished entirely, replaced by desperate craving as she inhaled deeply, eyes glowing with desperate hunger. I smell cumin, chili powder, and rendered meat grease. Su Qingyao swallowed hard, her features contorted with ravenous longing. After their horrid experience eating undercooked contaminated wolf meat followed by violent illness, the familiar comforting aroma of properly seasoned barbecue felt utterly intoxicating to them. People must be here, other survivors, or even a rescue team. They have cooked food and supplies. We're saved. Su Qingyao cheered excitedly, instantly forgetting the lurking monster and the bloody trail they had followed. Driven by desperate hope, the 8 girls sprinted forward with renewed strength like wanderers discovering an oasis in the desert. Xia Yuqing raced alongside the others with a surge of hope. Anyone capable of preparing proper roasted food likely possessed medical supplies that could cure Zhang Yao's infection. They pushed through the final thick wall of shrubbery, and the landscape suddenly opened up to reveal a natural rock hollow. Yet the sight before them froze every person in place the instant their eyes registered the scene. Their breathing halted completely, pupils blown wide with shock. What stood before them was an unexpectedly sophisticated wilderness camp. 2 massive boulders leaned against one another to form a naturally windproof enclosure. Thick logs woven together with sturdy vines had been erected into a solid protective windbreak at the front of the rock shelter. Behind the windbreak, a blazing campfire cast warm golden light across the area. Suspended above the flames on a wooden spit was a huge, succulent haunch of wild wolf meat. Its golden, crispy exterior sizzled with hot grease over the fire, evenly coated with ground cumin and chili powder. The mouth-watering scent drifting out originated right here. What stunned the women to the core was the makeshift bed set up at the deepest part of the campsite. It was lined with thick layers of dried moss, topped with 13 intact, soft, flawless gray wolf pelts stacked together to form a spacious bed. In this perilous wilderness where temperatures hovered just above freezing, this wolf fur bed was nothing short of an ultra-luxurious presidential suite. Leaning lazily against the soft pelts on this bed was a tall man with lean, cheetah-like streamlined muscle definition. He held a bottle of purified water, a commodity only available in civilized settlements, tilting his head back to drink. Beside him lay an open first aid kit marked with a Red Cross logo, neatly stocked with antibiotics, anti-inflammatory medicine, gauze bandages, and saline solution. Right next to the medical bag stood a matte black high-carbon steel machete glinting with icy sharpness, faint dried blood still clinging to its blade. This man was none other than Lin Mo, the very person they had driven ruthlessly out of the farm the previous day, under the pretext of preventing potential harassment. Lin Mo. Xia Yuqing clapped a hand over her mouth, letting out a shocked gasp. Time seemed to freeze on the spot. Lu Yunyan, Su Qingyao, Chen Shi, and the rest stood rooted at the edge of the shrubbery, their eyes bulging in disbelief. A crushing sense of disparity slammed into each of them like a heavy sledgehammer, shattering their misplaced superiority and self-esteem into pieces. They recalled the previous night, trapped inside a drafty ramshackle cabin. They had shivered violently against bitter winds, fled in blind terror from wolf packs, suffered casualties and severe injuries. Desperate enough to fight one another over raw wolf flesh ridden with parasites, they had fallen violently ill after eating it, sinking into total despair. Meanwhile, Lin Mo was alone deep in the wilderness, sheltered within a sturdy, warm camp, resting on a bed layered with 13 wolf hides. He was roasting well, seasoned meat dripping with grease over open fire, with clean drinking water and a full set of modern medical supplies within easy reach. This was not wilderness survival by any stretch of the imagination. It was outright wilderness glamping. This cannot be real. Su Qingyao's voice trembled. She stared fixedly at the medical kit, the machete, then the pile of skinned wolf skeletons scattered on the ground. She drew a sharp breath, her mind reeling from the revelation. She finally understood. The mysterious, terrifying figure that had single-handedly wiped out an elite wolf pack near the farm the night before, dragging the 100-kilogram gray wolf carcass away like a lifeless stray animal, was no mutated beast. It was Lin Mo, the man they had cast out. With nothing but a single blade, He had slaughtered an entire elite wolf pack single-handedly. This absolute, overwhelming power gap made Chen Shi, a trained Sanda practitioner, feel her legs go weak and unsteady beneath her. Gulping hard, Li Mengyao and the others stared at the sizzling roasted meat and the clear bottle of purified water beside Lin Mo, their eyes burning with envy. Intense jealousy, burning hunger, and overwhelming regret intertwined, completely breaking down their mental defenses. Why did this have to happen? Why did they, a group of young women, have to endure hardship, loss of companions, freezing cold, and starvation back at the farm? How could this man, whom they had looked down upon, live in such comfort out here in the wild? It was utterly unfair.